live.
We're doing it live. We're doing it live. Shaline Tsuruga.
And Ardent Melody.
We're doing it live.
We're doing it live. We're doing it live.
Shut up. Shut up.
We're doing it live.
We're
Doing it live.
Hi, Mel.
Hi. Craig is so intense.
I know. He's just like,
No recording. Speaking of recording,
hi. So, I think I need to explain something. So yeah, we recorded almost 3 hours.
Yep, 2:54. Just because I'm looking at the timestamp.
Yeah, of just pure roleplay. It was so good, and
such joy.
Only half of it got heard.
It's okay, I was loud enough sometimes anyway.
Yeah.
I could be heard across the distances.
Yeah. It was funny. It picked up very little, but not enough that I felt like it could be worthwhile of adding to an episode. But I know you and I definitely wanted to let people know kind of what happened.
Yeah. It turned out to be such a good session.
It was.
No matter what happens with the recording, nobody can take that session away from us.
No, it was a good session. I feel very accomplished. I think the part that most crushes me is the very end.
Yeah.
With all the genuine, which we'll get to. We'll talk to it about that in a minute. But
yeah.
By
the way, is the coloration on my screen light the way that it's showing up for me?
Yes.
I'm just checking.
Yes, it is.
Do you want to pause and
I have my video.
Okay.
Record.
Perfect. Then I will stop streaming. Okay. So what a session.
Yes, what a session. We were on the heels of what happened in the actual thing. The actual session 8. This is right on the tail end of that. You want to describe what was going through Sienna's mind at the end of that session and going into this one-on-one?
Yeah, I mean, there's a million things going into in Sienna's mind. Sort of with each passing day, this feeling that she thinks she knows what's going on. And I actually don't know, Shaline, if you want me to say what it is, because the player knows, so I don't want to state it as a fact. But for Sienna, she's had her sister, who is a champion of the gods, and her sister has Verdant. So Akira has this green owl that lives in a figurine, and she knows that Ignacio got a little figurine of a raven. Sienna has seen these things before, but really didn't want to believe that that's what she had. And then, of course, Biggs, aka now Ami, came into her life, and she's got this voice talking in her head, and she's like, no, I'm not a god person. This is not how this works. So she's not panicking, but she's more just like in a state of disbelief, almost denial. It's not like, it's not grief. It's not like the 7 stages of grief, which is also, it kind of is to some degree
Yeah.
of like, this is not who I thought I was.
Mhm.
So yeah, she wakes up from this vision at the very end of episode 8 and is just like, mind is going a million miles a minute. And she's like, I'm no shot in hell I'm going back to sleep. So she's like, all right, I'll get some stuff out of the way. And that's where we ended up picking up with this one-on-one.
Yeah. And do you want to say kind of like a little catch up of what kind of happened at the end? So those who hadn't seen, why haven't you seen it?
Why haven't
But
you seen session 8?
if you kind of want to describe like kind of what happened at the end of episode 8 that made Sienna be like, yeah, I'm not going back to bed now.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. So I mean, we had the moment with the voice speaking, and Sienna actually tried to call out the name Sunara, to which of course the voice just was like, maybe, because the voice is ornery, and we love that. We love that for them. And there was just a conversation of wanting to know sort of what these things meant. I'm trying to remember exactly. The question that we asked was, ooh, my brain is short-circuiting a bit here. I know it. It's in there somewhere.
I think it was more of like, is there something pertaining to my father's journal that we need to be focusing on?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. And then the voice, the deity of some sort, highlighted a passage, and you ended up reading that passage at
I
the end of session
did.
8, which was incredible. And then there was a sort of supporting vision that happened around the same time of when the passage was written. So it was just this is something where we've been focused on the fallen. That we know from what Elder Yu and Keelane said, that if the fallen get their hands on all the champions' weapons, the world ends, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And our task is to go find the champions and find those weapons, which are two different tasks, two very different tasks.
Absolutely.
um, but what made Zephyr fall in the first place? There's this sort of like, what's the root cause here? Because yeah, sure, the fallen are trying to do something with these weapons that we don't 100% understand yet. And okay, but that's just a symptom. What caused it? Because there was a first fallen, and that was Zephyr.
Mhm.
We've heard Zephyr's name from the dragon before, when he called out for Zephyr. So, yeah, I think the question becomes, what caused Zephyr to fall? And that's what Shinya, Sienna's father, says to her at the end of the vision. Find what changed Zephyr. Because
Yeah.
all throughout the journal, even for Tethisi, who is another fallen, they are described as being wonderful, especially as kids, right? Like they knew them.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, and it was one of the common themes was all of these children, because they're the children of the primes. It's not the primes themselves; it's the children of the primes are one by one over this course just starting to fall, and it's like, why would such great children who were outstanding, like you mentioned, Tethisi had a twin brother who basically up until he was a teenager could not walk, and Tethisi always protected him willingly. Like, it was never a case of you and Darag saying, Tethisi, you're gonna have to protect your brother. Tethisi was the one that said, hey, I'm gonna protect you.
Yeah, and that was something that was innate to her.
Yeah.
There's always something, though, like with criminals and like evil and nature versus nurture that we talk about in the real world of nobody ever thinks that they're evil. And there are things that I know as a player, because of you and I talking, that to where I know that this isn't the thing. But if we were talking about it from a purely objective perspective, people don't necessarily know that they're going to start doing something evil. They always think that they're justified. So the question becomes, is this the result of an outside influence, or is this the result of something leading them down that path, maybe not an external influence, but just something that they experienced.
Right.
Probably not, but the question stands.
Yeah. It's like, so
So,
what would cause this? What
mhm.
would cause such good children to all of a sudden feel like they're being wronged?
Yeah. Yeah. And Sienna is actually like going back to like what's keeping her up. Her mind is just spinning. Like, there's how many questions did I put into Sienna's journal?
Lot.
There's a lot. There's actually,
a
I've got them right here.
lot.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And these are usually also like multiple questions. These are just
Yeah.
the number of bullets. So,
Yeah, there's more
and-
like multiple questions within those bullets.
Yep, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Partially because this is who Melody is as a player. I'm sorry, any and all future DMs, and I'm sorry, Shaline. Uh, but I always want to know like what's going on. So questions came into play from the journal entries. Like this was a different journal entry than the one that you read, but like we learned that Zoot and Ravens, who are 2 primes, made the underworld together. Why would they do that? Not maybe it's a place for the dead to go, but there's all kinds of different reasons why the underworld exists in different mythologies. We're talking about a world where the gods are real. Like, why did they make the underworld? Why does this place exist? And there was a bunch of like different names mentioned in terms of who lives in the underworld and who the king and queen of the underworld are. And it's those questions from the journal. It's also questions of the visions of what happened 30 years ago, because we were able to answer the question a little bit in Sienna's mind also in session 8, where Kavoria identified that probably the dreams that Serafina struggles with are more trauma induced.
Yeah.
And she was the outlier. Everybody else's dreams started about 30 years ago. So what could have happened 30 years ago to where all of these people who we're now identifying as champions started to have these dreams?
Yeah, the only person the only 2 like dreams that we've had so far besides Akira's, that because we know Akira had the essentially session 0. Session 0 was her dream.
Yeah.
That identified these people as they're going to be the ones to save the world. And that just happened that night. Like that first night, I think I have listed in the calendar that they were there probably about another night before.
And she'd had visions before that, though, right?
She would
that
have
were
yeah.
like the ones that we've heard.
I'm trying to think.
Because if not, I might just be making an assumption.
Well, no, Akira has had visions. That's part of her thing as a champion. Like, and I'm gonna say this now. Like, Ignacio has not had his first vision yet, but he will. Like, that's coming up.
Oh, I have a theory about Ignacio that I have a theory. I will go on.
But right now, Ignacio is still like trying to figure out why he's a champion. Like, what made Revenge choose him? And so I have a feeling like Ignacio, while he has accepted that he's a champion, he hasn't accepted that he's a champion.
He knows that this is something happening to him. He hasn't adopted it as part of his identity.
Right. Whereas Akira, after, and this is actually getting back into her backstory a little bit, which I don't mind sharing here. Akira, when she was born, she's the daughter of Shinya Thornblossom and Genevieve Dupont. Genevieve Dupont was a very notorious singer within the town of Janelle, and they had a few drinks. One thing led to another. 9 months later, Akira is there. Kind of like in a similar fashion of how Sienna happened.
Yep.
Although this time there was way more drinks. Way more drinks involved than just
way more alcohol involved.
Yeah. Because dwarf.
Uh-huh.
But So Akira, for like the first 13 years of her life, grew up with her mother. And then Shenya was on his way through Janelle again, saw Akira and instantly knew it was his child. One, she was a half elf. Two, the hair and the eyes, dead giveaway.
As we've seen, dead giveaway.
They're dead giveaways. Because it's such a unique combination, because they're not typical blue eyes. They're like this crystalline blue, as I had described it in a recent session.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping it vague for a reason.
Uh-huh.
But it's a crystalline blue, which is it's very rare among elves, anyways. But
it's rare in the world, right? Like
it's
not common
rare
anywhere.
in the world as well. The only ones that have this crystalline blue are the children that have it from Shenya. There are a couple of Shinji children, because blue is a recessive gene.
Mm-hmm.
And Shinji's eyes are brown, but he still carries the blue recessive.
Yeah. So
a couple of his children does have blue eyes, but they're like a more typical blue. They're not a crystalline blue like Shenya's is. And so Shenya's like, all right, I'm going to take you with me. I'm going to raise you. I'm going to accept my responsibility. You're going to be raised as an elf and kind of learn the ways of basically what he does. He's a high elder of Kilane. You're going to be raised in the ways of politics, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until after they got back to Kilane where he realized just how special Akira was.
Yeah.
One, she's a true bard, which is a very, very more enhanced version of a bard.
It's a homebrew class, right?
It's a homebrew
that
class.
Created.
Yes, it's a homebrew class. Basically what it is that their words have a certain power about them. The problem with Akira, and not necessarily a problem, but kind of the difference with Akira is because she's a half-elf, her powers fluctuate a whole lot more than, say, she was a full elf or full human. Which is kind of what I try to show, which will be coming out soon. TM. With Shenya, or not Shenya, Zashi. Zashi is a true bard. But because Zashi is full elf, he has way more control of his powers.
Yeah. And Zashi is Zashi Aizawa, right?
Yes.
From the Aizawa Manor?
Yes.
Okay. One of the parents of the twins that were born recently.
Yes. And it is also the direct father of Giryan Aizawa that you met back in Kilane.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And so he's able to control, which one of the things that I kept bringing up with Akira is whenever she was singing in the tavern, I kept having Ignacio roll that charisma.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, he succeeded every single time. But
from a character perspective, yes, thankfully. From a player perspective, I'm like, oh, I want him to fail.
I know,
I want to see what
right?
happens.
I want to see what happens, right? The good thing is that Spirit and I, or Rolando and I, are good friends. So I don't think he would have been too, like, about it. Yeah. Because we have that trust. Mm-hmm. That I personally, as a DM, would not let it go so far. Like,
of course.
I myself would have stopped something. But
Akira as a character wouldn't have let it go far either. Like that's the other thing.
Yeah. Because Ignacio and Akira had kind of this bond. It wasn't the same type of bond that Ignacio and Conforia have, for instance. Mm-hmm. And So it was Akira definitely 100% would have, if she ever saw him trying to come upon her, be like, whoa, whoa, whoa,
Hold on, buddy.
hold on. But then she also would have recognized that she did it to herself.
Yeah, 100%.
Because, like I
Which, of
said,
course, she struggles with.
she struggles with it. And the fact that he saved both times, she took it as, I'm starting to finally gain control
And do you
of
think
my
that that's
powers.
true? Or do you think that it's just Ignacio's particularly strong-willed?
Who knows?
Keep watching to find out.
To Akira, that's her thought process. I'm
Mm-hmm.
finally gaining control of my powers. And it's definitely going to be something interesting to continue to play with.
Yeah. You said Zashi's a true bard. So those are the two true bards that we've met in the story so far.
Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that also explains too why she was able to help protect us from the dragon.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
Yeah, because like I said, her voice carries such a certain power. She can, like in the dragon chase, going back to the dragon chase, she basically called upon the wind to kind of help give this tailwind to move them quicker and quicker and quicker.
Thank goodness too, because we
Yeah.
were not doing great with our saves.
Oh no, the rolls were terrible. And I still say to this day, if Serafina not had gotten that nat 20, you still had yet another round, and the dragon was almost there.
Yeah. Yeah. It would have been interesting being level 4s at the time and
Yeah, having to
being up
fight this
against-
dragon.
Yeah. Which would have been an exercise in just trying to get the fuck away, honestly. Yeah. But still.
Well, and at that point, it would have been like, okay, well, we're going to have to end session here. You got a dragon fight in the next, like, beginning of the next session.
Get ready.
Get ready.
Oh, man. But yeah, like, all the questions in Sienna's journal are, like, taking all the little things that have... There's just so many little outlier questions, and she's trying to put together what's actually going on, because everybody has pieces, and everybody has these questions that we're not really sure. And Sienna's brain, she's got an engineer brain. This is what she does.
Mm-hmm.
She solves puzzles, and for her, she's got the kind of the biggest puzzle in front of her right now. So she's thankfully got her father to lean on, which was part of what happened immediately after the vision, after Shinya said in the vision, find what changed Zephyr.
Yeah.
So she actually reaches out to her father very quickly via her elven transpondent stone and says, Father, had vision, hoping you can see my many questions, need research for time before Great Battle and research on Fallen. Where can I go? Because the Fallen, from what I can tell of the world, and correct me if I'm wrong, Shaline, are very taboo. You wouldn't just go start researching them anywhere. You would have to have a very clear reason for doing so. Otherwise, you're going to look like a follower of the Fallen, which is going to get you ousted from a lot of circles.
Yeah. And I feel like for Sienna, in the relation to her father, asking about that was not taboo. That was like, okay, here we are. We're on this mission. We need help. Like,
yeah.
I need to know where to start, which is why he requested or like responded back saying try a library in Endeavora, excuse me. And of course, there's ways that you can go about it once you get to the library. Be like, okay, look, like here's our purpose. This is, and obviously the armbands are gonna be a good thing, like as long as you keep it on, because it's gonna denote you as there's a certain task that you're on, and it's the Momoyo family, which is what you is a part of, that has given you this task. Like it's basically you're like, this is my proof.
Yeah. If people know what that is, because like I think across Ultreese it seems like the Momio family is pretty well known, but I think as we get into other parts of the world, that's going to mean less. Hard to say.
I will say this, and I'm going to say this in game at some point. When you get to Captoria, it's going to mean jack shit.
Honestly, it might work against us at that point. There might be a moment where taking it off actually is probably the move.
Yeah. Quite honestly.
Yeah.
And the good thing is that there's no attunement to it. Like there's no real enchantment on it, save for the fact that those who don't understand Elvish can understand it. They can't speak it, they can't read it. Well, they can read it,
Mhm.
but they wouldn't be able to like actually sit there and read it aloud
Yeah.
because it's just
Yeah.
an understanding. They wouldn't be able to speak it, they wouldn't be able to like actively read it. It's just more of
Mhm.
a they're going to see it and understand it,
Yeah.
which is helpful for Ignacio,
Oh, yeah.
who knows nothing of Elvish. And then
Well, and who really struggles too, like
yeah.
because there's so much of this that has elven lore, at least right now with where we're at in the
Mm.
world. Like as a human, he's kind of just like there, and
Yeah.
that would be tough. It would be really tough to be in this kind of scenario and know that what you need to do is important, but feel like you really have none of the tools to do so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of almost like the same thing of being dropped in a foreign country not knowing how to speak the language.
Mhm.
Like you
Yeah, I
know
think he'll
what you
get
need to
there.
do, but you're having trouble like conveying it.
Mhm.
And yeah, he'll get
Yeah.
there at some point. I mean, not that he has Kavoria, but
I was like, I mean, she could teach him Elvish.
oh
That's
yeah.
something that she could do.
That I mean that's definitely, and especially if he increases um he's able to get like a feat or something that allows him to have another language. By all means, Kavoria could spend time and start teaching him Elvish. I mean, even
Yeah.
if I mean, I have the power as a DM. Like, if he wants to sit there and then like have a conversation with Kavoria and be like, "Teach me Elvish," I by all means would allow him to add Elvish onto his language.
That'd be amazing. It would definitely help him for
Yeah,
sure.
but of
Um,
course that's a player in
yeah, that's a
character
player decision
decision. Yeah,
for sure. And yeah, I know like the amount of interacting with the story that you're so kind to donate your time and energy to, that I like to do, I feel like is way more excessive than most people go into. I don't know if that's true for sure, but I feel like it. So it's great that you're able to keep that in mind and be like, no, he's got player agency. If he wants to come to me, he can. But
yeah,
it's something where it's like I just appreciate that you're flexible that way as a DM.
yeah.
Um, well, and it's your story too. It's obvious how passionate you are about it. I mean, you said how long has this been brain rot for you?
5+ years. It
Yeah.
started back in 2020, like after the lockdown. I'm gonna get real here. When my dad was in the hospital bed, uh, and I would have to basically sit by his side every day while my mom went to work, it
Hmm.
was just something that I could just escape to
Yeah.
and work on. And granted, like the stuff that happened then has vastly changed now. Like I'm going
Yeah.
back and I'm reading some of my old notes and I'm like, oh yeah, that has changed. That has since changed. I hadn't even changed that. And the fact that it, I mean, even to this day, it's still evolving.
Oh yeah, I mean you can't. That's something that my husband actually talked about. So he has a personal story that he'd been working on since he was a teenager
Mm-hmm.
that he adapted for me and a couple of other friends to play in as a Pathfinder campaign. And the characters born of that are actually the basis for the Nameless King. But he was talking about how like the amount of things where he had to be like, okay, this is what happened in the story, but it's not going to work in D&D. So we
Yeah.
need to adjust it to be able to give the characters agency, make sure that what they do actually has impact on the world, and that not that they're just like my pawns going and
Mm-hmm.
doing my own story beats. They get their own. So I can only imagine, like you've probably had to deal with the same thing of this is going to change as I bring, four
Mm-hmm.
other people into it.
Yeah, and
Five other people, actually.
like I was even up straight in front with you guys. It's like the biggest thing that I am going to lead you through is getting to Kinlane. Once you're in
Hmm.
Kinlane, it is free game.
Yep.
It is free game. You can go wherever you want. You can do whatever you want. I just need to get you there. That's all I'm doing. Like, that's why I was, like, in the first 2 sessions, so hard pressed on getting you guys to Killeen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. You know?
Because that's basically where the story starts. Like, that's where it starts. Sandgale was just the place where you all met.
Yeah. Well, there would be no reason for us to have met in Killeen,
No.
given especially Ignacio, right?
Yeah.
As a human, he wouldn't even be allowed in there without specific reason. So we needed to have the party come from an outside town. It's not like you starting the group in Killeen made any sense, because it just wouldn't have.
No. Because it's like you said, there was no reason for Ignacio to be in Killeen. Until the party
was, but he didn't know it.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, well, at the same, like, I mean, even Kavoria said it. Killeen hardly ever lets humans inside. Hardly.
Yeah.
The only human really in recent history, the only 2 humans really in recent history that got in is Akira's mother and half sister.
Yeah.
Those are really
they
the
had to get
only
special dispensation.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
like, part of it was after, and this is more of her story, after Shinya took Akira, Genevieve couldn't do it. She couldn't do it. She couldn't be away from her daughter for so long. And so she basically wrote Shinya, be like, I need to see my daughter.
Yeah.
I need to see her. I need to hold her in my arms. And it was Shinya, and at that point, Shinya had already started changing. Because Shinya
in what way, actually? Because he seems like the kind of guy that is much more empathetic now than he was before Akira.
And that's it. He was more like, nope, you're not an elf. You can't be here. He was basically the one who took it upon himself to protect Killeen from outside races. It was from him.
Out of being protective of you, because we talked about that in the visit to the Thorn Blossom Manor, which was another one-on-one in episode 5. If you have not seen that,
go check it out.
Go check it out.
He basically was the one who was like, okay, if you're not an elf, you can't be here.
Yeah. And there are reasons for that.
Yeah, there was reasons for that. And that's how it was for, like, pretty much up until Akira came. Well, even with Aslina. Aslina is another half-elf. She's probably one of, like, 2 other half-elves that are actually within Killeen, not counting Akira. Aslina? The herbal shop owner.
Yes. That's right.
She's one of 3, not counting Akira, that are basically half-elves.
Yeah.
Within Killeen. And the main reason she's there, she fell in love with one of Yu's children and married him. And it was basically, he was the one who vouched for her. He was like, no, Mom, I love her. You gotta let her stay.
Yeah. And I bet actually Shinya probably took some convincing. There was a part of me that really thought that we were going to encounter, before we got the armbands, there was a part of me that thought that Sienna going around as let's say her and Ignacio were walking around. I thought there was going to be a moment where the city guard stopped them, because Sienna does not look like an elf. She looks so much more like a dwarf, that if you are uninformed or don't have a reason to believe she has elven lineage outside of the pointed ears, you could very much think that she's a dwarf. And, there would be a lot of reason for the city guard to be like, what happened? Why are you here? I actually thought that was going to be something we ran into. I'm grateful we didn't, because it wasn't important, but it would have made sense.
Well, and you also have to remember you were with Seraphina, who is an elf.
Yeah.
She's a full elf. Now, she's an elf of 2 different types, but she's a full elf.
Yeah.
So
and
because
the city guard outwardly would have no reason to question her.
Exactly. Because she's an elf. She can be here. Oh, yeah. They're with an elf? Okay, whatever. Like, there was no reason at that point to question him, because one of the rules was you have to be with an elf. if
Yeah.
you are not of an elven lineage. Now, of course, Shenya knew you were, but there would not have been time, like you said, to like inform the rest of the guard. Like this may be a dwarf, but she has elven lineage.
Yeah. Yeah. Not just elven lineage, but elven lineage of like
Me.
the city elder. Yeah.
Of me.
Me. Lineage of me is very funny to me.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk, because so this is lightly discussed in episode 5, and also I fully understand we are full off topic right now, just as always happens with these kinds of things. But do you want to talk a little bit about your thoughts on why Helene and Creedy as a nation, and why there's such a, where there is protectiveness and what would normally be seen as xenophobia of only elves in certain areas, why does that exist in context of what's going on between the Primes and the Fallens?
I can't give too much away on the Captoria side,
Mhm.
just because it may come up within the game.
Of course.
As for the Cready's, I'm gonna lump Creedy into this. The Creedy Kilane side. A lot of it is, like you said, there's a fear of the fallen. But the biggest thing that for the Kilane section of the elves, back in episode 5, Shenya talked about this tragedy that happened to you, the highest elder you, as her full title, highest elder you, Momoyo de Kilane. So backstory a little bit. Kilane was just in its infancy when Darag, one of the primes, came to Shinji, Yu's husband, and was like, I see great potential in you. Can I bear children with her? Which Shinji's like, I say it comically, but in all seriousness, he's like, go for it.
As long as she's okay with it.
As long as she's okay with it, go for it. And who wouldn't? You've seen Darag. He's hot.
And we've seen you. You hot.
She's hot
you's
too.
Hot as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, there was understanding between both sides of. There was good looks there, but at the same time, it was strategic on Darag's part because you is a second generation Creedy elf, which are Fae based, which is very different from Fae descendant. Creedy elves, as a history, basically what happened was Darag, I think it was Darag, may have been Revens. Can't remember. No, Darag. It was Darag. Went into the Fae realm, which was already a realm on top of the realm that was created, as we know, as Anomia.
The prime material plane.
The prime material
right? So
plane.
you've got prime material, and then the Fae realm is sort of parallel to it, but not part of it.
Right. Went to the Fae realm, found two, a Fae prince and a Fae princess, essentially, of two different clans, brought them back to the prime material plane, and gave them the form of an elf.
And that's the Momoyos, like the original Momoyos,
That
right?
is the original king and queen Momoyo.
Got it.
They are Fae based because they are Fae. They are Fae. They just have an elven form to them. Which is why I'm gonna make a callback to I think it was still episode 5 when Seraphina had that memory of the man grabbing her wrist saying so she bore a Fae.
Yep.
Which goes back to Captoria's elves. Captorian elves are celestial based. In Gerania, basically did the same thing as Tsuruga. Went into the celestial realm, essentially, grabbed 2 celestials and brought them back and gave them a elven form.
For what purpose, out of curiosity, were the primes grabbing folks from other planes and bringing them over? Just curious, like, why do that?
Variety.
Okay.
It basically just that, for variety.
Okay. And I mean, there was consent, presumably, between everybody involved.
Oh,
so,
yeah. Like, they didn't just go and kidnap them. It was just more of like, hey, I have this idea. Are you on board?
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there was consensual consent between all parties.
Yeah.
And in fact, this is just a little Easter egg for you all. The Captorian elves and the Creati elves actually weren't always feuding. They actually were harmonious at one point.
And then the Great Battle happened,
The Great
presumably.
Battle happened. And now, it didn't happen right away, but it did take some time that feud started happening.
Okay. And basic world history, presumably mostly known. Stop me if it's not. But the Great Battle happened. At the end of the Great Battle, both the Primes and the Fallen were pulled behind the veil in order to protect the world.
The basically what ended the Great Battle was Gerania, who saw her twin brother fall. This is actually what ended the Great Battle. Revens got a strike. I don't remember who did it. I think it was Zephyr. Struck down Revens. And she got so furious because he was one of 2. We know the other one was Sonara.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of 2 who was fatally wounded. And she got so mad that it basically boosted her powers, and she forced all the Fallen and all of their followers back behind this gate. Now,
very similar to the Divine Gate that we've seen in other stories, but this one specifically was out of this battle moment that happened.
Yeah. And so all of the Fallen, their followers, were all thrusted beyond this gate, and Gerania, with the help of the champions, sealed that gate.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Now, why are the Primes behind the same gate?
No, it is a completely different gate. This gate is kind of more of like thinking back to Critical Role and how the Betrayer gods were behind something. This is kind of very similar to that.
I see.
And then the Primes do have their own divine gate.
Yeah.
And it was after that battle.
Veil.
Yeah.
So they can both be called the Veil, but they're different locations.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, the location of where the Fallen's gate is has been lost to time. Like, even the worshippers of the Fallen do not know where their gate is. That's how much the Primes wanted anything and everything about the Fallen to be erased. It was like, it was their last commandment, like, erase anything and everything about all of those who have fallen.
Which is part of why it's going to be difficult to find information here.
Right.
For what Sienna's looking for. Because what we need to know pre-Great Battle is going to end up being associated in part with that Fallen adjacent information.
Mm-hmm. There are certain texts that the Primes did say don't touch. Because they wanted to make sure there was still a record, but it was very hard to get to.
Yeah.
Very hard. And basically what they did was those texts that were said don't touch were sent all over the world just so it was hard to find.
Very similar to the champions' weapons being
Right.
as dispersed as they are.
Right. They wanted
very
to
hard to put them together.
they really wanted to make it hard for if the fallen were to return to gain those powers.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And
Makes sense.
and so Gerania actually healed her twin brother. He still bears like a bad scar and it still pains him to this day. But the pain is more of like it's there. Like you know that like annoying little thing that you kind of constantly feel, but it's just like, okay, and you get to a point where you ignore it until it's just like
not chronic pain fully, but it's in that realm without necessarily being debilitating for him.
And so once he was healed, Shmala made Sunara. They went. They made sure that their champions knew where to put their weapons, and basically what it was is the champions just basically took them home, and it became part of where they lived, and it was the order of keep it protected. That was it.
Well, and that's part of why. So we can. I'm thinking two things. Sorry, my brain does the same thing Sienna's does sometimes. Where it's
You're
just
good.
racing. Shmala in healing / changing Sunara also lost their ability to practice magic, right? Because they put everything they had into that. That's how badly Sunosha at the time had been wounded.
Yeah, Sunosha, which is the original name of Sunara, which
is actually confirmed in this journal entry.
Yeah, it actually
it
actually was. It was confirmed in really the vision that Sienna had, the journal entry that was read, and the voice.
Yeah.
Because even the voice said, "My son."
Yeah.
It 100% confirmed that Sunara was Sunosha.
Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah.
Because that's not known anymore. That's not something that's discussed.
No, because most texts around the world have all had the name swapped to Sunara.
Yeah.
Like, you could actually see it, Sienna saw it in the Factorio Mephisto.
Mm-hmm.
Because there were places where it had Sunara's name in the public version, but in the version she found and became her coded version, it had Sunosha.
Yeah. And there was originally, she didn't know why that was, or like why there was a difference. I'm sure Sienna thought that it was a different person.
Yeah. I mean, any text that is found that has the original name Sunosha, I would almost say people think it may have been an 8th prime.
Like an 8th prime? I could see that.
And that had fallen, and the Sunara had always been there. But they just was like, well, we'll just throw Sunara's name because it's close enough.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of the cool things that just keeping that open line of communication, thanks to the Elven Transpondent Stone, between Sienna sort of getting this bits and pieces of new information and being able to verify it, because that's of course very scientific of her. She wants to verify anything she thinks she knows. That's a cool thing with her being able to speak with Shinya, who is there, who can speak to what things were versus what they are.
Yeah. And they're really the only people around who would know that information are elves.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't wait to get to Captoria for that reason, because I look forward to better understanding their viewpoint. It's going to be an interesting thing, because part of me, of course, looking at it from Sienna's viewpoint, is already so turned off to these people for a lot of reasons. But there's going to be an interesting thing of like celestial approach. I don't know. I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know, like, getting back to the messages with Shinya, him asking her like what the vision entailed, one of the things that he responded with I thought was interesting. Because Sienna explained the vision,
Mm-hmm.
and he responded with, "I see your questions. I will send a letter to you within a day or so. Expect response in 3 days. Interesting vision of past." Which makes me wonder, is he saying that some of that didn't actually happen? Obviously, him speaking to her never
Yeah.
happened because she wasn't even around
Right.
then at all. But I just think it's a interesting choice of words there from him.
I can actually speak on this with you.
Okay.
Because it's gonna be within the letter, anyways.
Okay.
He says it's interesting because he didn't expect you to have the vision of the past.
Fair.
One, I mean, you've said it yourself, and I think you've even mentioned it to Shinya. Sienna is not a religious person at all.
No. She not a god person. She is just
And the
she's not
fact
opposed,
the
but
fact
she's
that
not
she
her.
was given a vision, it surprises him.
So has he really not picked up on what she is?
Mm-mm. He has no clue.
Really?
He has no clue.
How did he know what Ami was then without knowing?
Because he related it to Verdant and to Yu's own green owl, because Yu still has hers.
Yeah.
The Verdant owl was not, the Serpentine, excuse me, it's called Serpentine owl, was not passed to Akira. Akira had gotten hers pretty much almost right after Yu was like, "Hey, you're the champion."
Got it.
That's when Akira got hers. Mainly because Akira was so young.
Yeah, that's fair.
Akira was 13 when she was told that she was a champion.
I can't like there's a part of me like as a player like I feel bad for this character because she really didn't get much of a childhood.
Well, it was basically like, you're the champion, but it's not time for you.
Yeah.
It's not time for you. So she's always known that she was a champion, but it was just more of like, okay. And then once she got to adult years, that's when you passed on to Thoro.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, she got her Serpentine owl like after she was told, but she never actually was quote unquote champion until she like fully accepted it as an adult. That
Makes sense.
this is what I am now. And so then she was able to go on
Mm-hmm.
and be the champion.
Yeah. Mm. I love this history. It's so cool and so rich, and I love that it's coming into play.
Yeah.
There was something that somebody said in I forget. I want to say it was in camp, like in somebody said, "Is it time again?" Talking about champions. Are we back to a time of champions? Which makes me feel like champions kind of faded away for a while, but I don't know.
Basically, it was always told, especially among the elves, that the champions would not rise unless there is a great evil or a great need for them.
Mm. So there wasn't like there has to be somebody who immediately gets brought in as a champion once one champion dies.
Right.
Okay.
It's more of it kind of I'm equating it back to Critical Role again. When Vex became well, even Pike, when they both became champions of the Dawnfather and the Everlight,
Mm-hmm.
respectively, there was no other champions except for back when the divergence happened.
Got it.
That was when the last champions
no
were. There was no need for champions. And so the fact that they became champions, it kind of signified something's gonna happen. We just don't know when.
Yeah.
Which campaign 3, like fast forward to campaign 3,
Which I've not watched yet, so la 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 la.
but that's all I'm gonna say. Which fast forward to
Yeah.
campaign 3, there we go.
And here we are.
If you've seen campaign 3, you know what I'm alluding to. If you haven't, you'll figure
Get
it
on
out.
that.
You'll figure
Yeah.
it out. But
Oh.
it's kind of that same concept. There was no need for champions after the Great Battle.
Yeah.
The world was peaceful for 1,683 or 82, 83 years. Like, it's been peaceful. Well, yes, there was some uprising within Plasara itself because of Vil. But
Yeah.
which we'll
I've just
talk
learned about that.
Yeah. For the most part, the world has been peaceful.
Yeah.
There's been no threat of the Fallen coming or anything, and now that there is a true threat, the Primes are like, all right, we need to pick our champions again.
Yeah. Man. I loved Sunara's why would I pick some hoity-toity follower? The way that she said it killed me. And what was great too is that Seraphita started laughing.
Yeah. Well,
it just made me smile.
On Sunara's, for real, she's the goddess of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Why would she choose a cleric or somebody who's devout?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would she?
Yeah.
She just wants to find somebody who wants to learn.
Yeah. And that's such a cool thing because like it goes to show how much personality the gods have in this world, because in almost any other sort of theology, I feel like it would be very natural to be like, okay, they're all going to be the clerics of whoever their god would be.
Right.
I just love that idea. Which actually kinds of there was other information that came to light that morning for Sienna. Not just the conversation with Shinya.
Yeah.
But the conversation that she got from another voice. There's more news.
Yeah, with her aunt. Yeah. Yet another connection. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A confirmation that their automaton friend was who she thought he was.
Mm-hmm. Are we allowed to say who that is?
I don't want to say more, just for the off chance that this person does come back.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like it would be more poignant for them.
Yeah.
To kind of catch everybody up, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that because I know in the recording that we did, we ended up reading those messages, but I also wonder if Sienna would write to her mother about it now that she has recently heard back from her mother.
Yeah.
And by the way, at the point that we recorded this, that had not happened yet. So this is like when we get back to the session, episode 9 next week, it'll be something where we can potentially talk about that.
Yeah, the letters pretty much come in when she goes back to Savorian State. So it's kind of like they came in, but she was out. She was at the blacksmith, which we'll talk about here in just a minute or two. But they while she was out, they came in. And so Caspian, who would be the one at the time of her returning, would have been told, like Caspian and Savorian would have been told, like, this is for one of your guests named Sienna, which Savorian would have been like, oh wait, that's the dwarf that's staying with that group that came in the other night.
Yep. Yeah, which and we got a chance to meet Savorian a little bit in the recording, which was a lot of fun. She is gnomish, if I'm not mistaken. She's a gnome that works and owns both of the inns that are Savorian.
Yeah,
1 and 2. And then she's also married to Kara. I keep saying Kara because I work with somebody named Kara.
Yeah,
in real life.
I can see. So she kind of has accepted both ways of saying, even though the proper way is Kara, but she's just like,
Perfect.
because she grew up and everybody's like, Kara, Kara,
Yeah.
Sarah. Like
Yeah, that happens.
somebody called her Sarah at some point. Doing the
Perfect.
S instead of the C sound, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Savorin, they connected on a few things. One, Savorin downs coffee like Sienna does,
Oh, yeah.
which is just a full mug at a time, usually to start. And then the other thing was that Savorin actually developed to-go lids, like for the mugs
Yeah.
that actually like are fashioned to go over them, so you can take them with you. Um, and that was something that Sienna pointed out and got really excited about. And she mentioned offhand that she's excited about it because she's an engineer and doesn't really often see like those kinds of quote unquote little problems being addressed.
Yeah.
And that gets Savorin excited for reasons.
Yeah. There was a metalwork relief over the inn's door. That
Gorgeous relief.
gorgeous relief. That unfortunately is damaged.
Mm-hmm. It's iron and steel, if
Mhm.
my notes are correct. It's an alloy of iron and steel. The carving shows 7 faceless figures, which are presumed to be the primes.
Mhm.
And there's a big crack in it where it looks like they're from Sienna's initial inspection of this. It looks like there was sort of when the relief was made, or another word for relief is carving, because
Mhm.
I didn't even think about what it was called right away. Like in this carving, there was some weak points that were sort of missed and were probably carved too deeply into. So along the relief line, along the carving, there's a bit of a crack that's formed, and Savorin is hoping that it can be fixed.
Mhm. And since Sienna was already headed to the smithery, who she met the owners of the previous
Yeah,
day,
by
Maka
being a truly
and
terrible customer.
which Maka was like, she's like, yeah, we're closing, but I see the excitement. Like she
I'm
was like,
prepared, I swear.
she was just like, I see a spark in her. Like there's a reason why she's asking to use the forge, and I'm
Yeah,
here
she's not
for
just
it.
gonna mess around in there.
Yeah, like she was there for it. She was like, okay, yeah, you want to use the forge? Absolutely. Like it got her excited because Maka, her aunt and her grandfather were both blacksmiths and really inspired her to kind
Yeah,
of follow that like family, for the lack of a better term, family business.
yeah, which it did turn into,
Yeah,
frankly,
it did.
because her wife is there,
Her wife is there, and her brother, her younger
and
brother,
her brother.
um, also got inspired and wanted, and in Raiko also had that like want to preserve, which we can talk about in a little bit.
I'm so excited to talk about Raiko because so Sienna's not wearing the like her traveling garb, like what you see in the PNG. Thank you, Palilius. If you don't know who Pally is, please look
Who
up
are you?
Palilius and fix your life because she's amazing. But she is actually wearing just like her smithing gear, which is much more just like basically leggings and a sports bra with her hair tied up in like a messy bun behind the braid, and just as much like tied and protected as possible,
Yeah.
knowing that she's going to sweat like crazy and everything. So like she's in very different garb on her way to the blacksmith. She's got the goggles, like for when you're heating metal and it gets white hot, you don't want to look right at it
Right.
without some protection. So like she's ready. She's got her gear on, and it just worked out. Like Savorin asks this question, and she's like, "Well, as it turns out."
Yeah, I'm actually going to. And so, like, halfway through the day, it was going to have to wait till noon before the relief can be gotten down. And that was when she found out that Maka's aunt was the one that made the brackets.
Mhm.
Because
Because there was concern about it falling down, right? Because they
well,
think
no,
that's
it
how the first
had
crack
fallen.
happened.
It had
It had
fallen,
fallen.
which is
Gotcha.
what caused the crack in the first place.
Got it.
And so it basically, the brackets that were holding it had worn down because exposed to elements and whatnot. So the aunt developed these brackets that actually were way better in the first place,
Mhm.
but also were more resistant to the elements.
Yeah.
But the aunt
Yeah.
also took into consideration, like, this is an aging piece of metal work. So she worked, of course, you could tell she worked very delicately with the piece. She made sure not to put more stress on it. Like, she took into consideration the age. But even,
Yeah.
it was even said at that time that the relief itself was not as brittle as it is
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, which we get into because at the blacksmith, Sienna is eventually able to get a much closer look at it. But like you said, it had to wait a few hours. So in the meantime, Sienna brought some coffee to Maka and Lorna because, working people, you want to
Yeah.
bring coffee. It's always helpful. And we got to learn a little bit about Maka and her family. Lorna being a human, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
And Lorna being from Duralin.
Mm-hmm.
Maka and her brother and her mother and aunt all fled to Duralin from their home. And I wrote it down here. It's somewhere in here. From Mithonia.
Yes.
So they fled, and at the time, Raiko, who's the baby brother, was 5 months old.
Yes.
Little baby one, and Maka was 6. So
6 years.
Sienna just sort of 6 years old. Yeah, 6 years old. And while their mother went to work, Maka sort of raised Raiko to some degree, as well as Lorna's mother
And
also watched over, and Lorna herself watched over them as children.
Yeah, Lorna's parents helped Maka's mother a great deal. And, I mean, even to some degree, Lorna's father was a good male influence in his life.
For Raiko?
For Raiko, yeah.
Yeah.
But once again, like, males growing up, we know in the real world that you need more than just one male to have a positive influence in a young boy's life. And unfortunately for Raiko, he didn't really get much of that. It was just Lorna's father for the longest time.
Yeah. As they grew up, though, Maka and Raiko both had a thing for Lorna. And Maka got the first kiss.
Maka got the first
there
kiss,
first.
and everything else after.
Everything else after.
Yeah.
Is it weird for them at all that basically one of the two siblings ended up marrying what was essentially their babysitter for a while? Was it weird for them in any way, or did they more so grow up together than anything else?
Lorna, Maka, and Raiko pretty much grew up together.
Okay.
Lorna is only a few years older than Maka.
Okay.
But there was no, like, real babysitter situation between them.
That's fair. That's a question I had after the session that I was like, I wonder if that would have been weird.
No.
Okay, we grew up together. That's different.
Yeah, they were pretty much growing up together. And it's like I said, Maka got the first kiss and everything else after because Lorna herself had fallen for Maka. Yeah.
It's so sweet. I love it.
And this is a real big case of childhood friends to lovers, like big huge trope situation.
Yeah. So poor Raiko has dealt with that.
But the good thing is that they all have a good spirit about it. Like even Raiko,
they're all friends.
Even Raiko, even after Raiko found out that no, it's his sister that Lorna chose. Was he heartbroken? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Like he was heartbroken, but he went about it the right way.
Yeah.
He went about
100%.
it the right way. He became very supportive of his sister. He was absolutely excited for her. And it's something that they tease about him all the time. They tease him with it, but it's a tease. It's like a good tease. It's a tease.
And they all know, like, he's not genuinely being hurt by any of this anymore.
No. Like, probably at first, if they had done it right away, absolutely. But
Yeah.
they waited. They waited to start teasing him about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. Maka also mentions, she ends up showing me, because Sienna asks about the weapons and mentions
Mhm.
that the weapons look amazing that are here outside of the shop. I'm pointing as if there's something there, but there's a little weapons rack right outside the shop. And she's like, these are really, really well made. And Maka says, oh, well, those are actually my brother, Raiko. I
Yeah.
do the armor. And so Sienna asks Maka what her favorite piece is that she's done. And Maka takes Sienna inside and shows her this amazing red shield that's sitting on the counter that's displayed. And she picks it up. She tells Sienna to pick it up, and Sienna does. And it's very light for what it is.
Mhm.
Uh, and it's because it's a special alloy that Maka was able to perfect. But we also learn at that point that Maka had help perfecting it
Mhm.
from after she was injured. She was injured hammering away at a piece where a piece fell off and kind of cut her neck pretty much. Uh, in order to cover the shop while she recovered, the blacksmith from Culane, who not the one that works on armor, but the one that works on weapons, came and helped cover the shop. Which of course Sienna goes, "Oh, you know
Yeah.
Elron?"
And it
I love
kind
that
of
moment.
alludes back to where Kavoria herself had said that she had been to Durlin because of Elron. Elron
Hmm.
came over and covered for a blacksmith that had gotten injured, and there was the connection.
I love how that tied together. It's so good. Oh, and the other thing too is there was the shield that we're looking at that we were looking at the time was there's a same version of that Maka made after Elrond left that she then sent to him, and that same shield is actually displayed in Elrond's
Mhm.
shop. So there's just this nice like camaraderie
Yeah.
established between Elrond's smithery's employees and family really,
Mhm.
and these guys.
Yeah, and there was a point where Sienna did ask Raiko what was his favorite piece that he has made, and he
Hmm.
pulls out this dagger, and it's in this beautiful sheath, and he said, "This was my very first piece." I think that's what I said,
Hmm.
and it was done with the help of Elron.
Yeah. And that's actually something I regret about that moment is that I didn't think to inspect the dagger closer.
Hmm.
Like Sienna looked at it and they started talking about Elrond, but I didn't actually like role play looking at it closer. I'd love to actually just like look at it closer and see what I can see. Um Retroactively.
I
Is
mean,
that a thing I can
there's
do?
we you two know that there's going to be other times where you're going to the smithery, so it wouldn't
Yeah.
be out of the realm of possibility of asking Raiko if she can inspect it.
Yeah, she probably will. And actually, that is kind of the next thing that happens. She hears that Maka and Lorna are working through. She asks about whether or not they're making armor in this alloy, this very
Hmm.
light sort of mixture of mithril and aluminum and steel. I want to say it's three total. I wrote it down.
Mithril, aluminum,
I,
and
Iron.
I think it was iron.
I think it was iron. Yeah. Um, so it's a combination of those three materials, and she's like, that would be great armor, honestly.
No, it was
Um,
titanium.
Titanium. That sounds right. I'm actually gonna write that down. Mithril, titanium, and aluminum.
The
Um,
mithril and aluminum for lightness and the titanium for the hardness.
yep, that's right. But what Maka hadn't really gotten to yet is figuring out how to keep the integrity of the alloy while still bending it. So flat pieces like breastplates and shields and things like that, things that aren't really curved, she can make. But the
Or
ones
have a
that,
light curve to them.
yeah, yeah. But things like greaves or full on
Pauldrons.
pauldrons, yeah, you wouldn't be able to make those just yet. So she's on it. She's close. She does mention
Yeah.
that she's very close, but she's not there yet. Uh, and so there's been she also really hasn't had time to work on it recently because the shop has been overwhelmed with orders. So Sienna mentions like Sienna's generally up before the rest of the crew just because that's her time to get shit done. And she's like, I can come in for a couple of hours the days that I have the ability to and help with these orders if you need an extra pair of hands. and she kind of gets a job. Like,
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a job. In part, like, to this point, obviously, there's been no interview. There's been no real demonstration of Sienna's skills, but Lorna notices Cassie on her shoulder
Mm-hmm.
and examines Cassie a little bit closer, and so does Maka. And I think that's probably, I could be wrong, but I think that's probably the merit on which they were like, yeah, you can come help.
Well, it really was, because Lorna has more of like this administrative position within the shop. Like, she does
Mhm.
small things. Like, she kind of does more of the jewelry stuff, so she could be up in the front working on jewelry, while
Mhm.
Maka and Raiko are pounding away in the back on their own
Mhm.
projects. And so she has more time to kind of sit there and look at details,
Mhm.
which is why she instantly picked up on Cassie. Because,
Yeah.
like, Cassie, you have said in the past, acts like an actual bird.
Mhm.
Like,
100%. Like, she's
preens
enchanted very much to
herself,
be like a bird.
like, does the head tilts and everything. So the fact that she caught on quickly that Cassie's not a normal bird,
Mhm.
I mean, it was more of like, okay, yeah, she could work. Like, I think we can trust her.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously, had the day gone poorly in other ways, like if she like blown up the shop, obviously that would not have, that would have changed.
Yeah.
But thankfully, that's not what happened. Maka does show Sienna into Raiko's forge, which is toward the back of the shop,
Hmm.
and sort of says, "Hey, we've gotten together the scrap metal that you mentioned. Here is where you can heat the forge up to be a little bit hotter. You can work on so Sienna needed a place that was hot enough to be able to melt platinum, which, fun fact, platinum's melting point is a full 4 times greater than that of gold. So
Hmm.
you really need a real forge in order to do it. And that's what she's going to use to melt down the platinum to make the rings that she needs for a warding bond spell, which is separate, by the way, from the rings, the four spell storing rings
Hmm.
that Lorna works on for her, which would
Yeah.
just be much more basic, like iron or steel. So she gets in there, gets to work. We did some rolls
Yeah.
in classic Mel can't roll for shit fashion. It took some time.
It did. It did. But we got there. You got there.
We got there. We did.
Oh.
And finished up the rings, which is great. That's huge. And then we knew Sienna had seen the relief and knew that it was an iron and steel alloy, and knew that it also needed to be aged. So she started work on the alloy,
Because you
and
also
was in the
needed
process
an
of doing
armor
that.
stand, and which
Yeah.
wasn't going to be there for a while, so you had to find something else to do.
Yeah. It's like she's like, I'm gonna make sure to fill the time. And yeah, she gets to work on an alloy, and then somebody comes in.
Yeah. It becomes lunchtime,
Mhm.
and Lorna actually comes in and says, Raiko is almost here with lunch as well as your armor stand. Why don't you come out here and have a break?
Mhm.
And Sienna
Enter
enter
freaking
Raiko.
adorable half orc.
Enter Raiko, who is the little brother of Maka. Uh, cute, cute as a button. Like,
Mhm.
when I was like, I was gonna be like, nah, he's gonna be a tough guy. He's gonna be a tough guy. And then the first
Mhm.
interaction with Lorna, I was like, oh no, 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 no,
Nope.
no, no. He's just gonna be a bean. He's gonna be this absolute bean
He's
of
a
a.
bean. But also, if you're concerned, by the way, audience, as like a potential writer or a potential DM, your characters will sometimes just tell you who the fuck they
Oh
are
yeah.
in the moment.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes you don't get that choice.
Oh yeah. Like, I even told you this. Like, sometimes with the more established characters, like you, Shinya, Toshi, Chio, they all have like set personalities that I set beforehand. But some of these side characters, like Savorin or Maka and Raiko, I had no idea like how they were gonna come out until I started like embodying them for their characterizations.
Yeah. I mean, that's also something that both Matt Mercer and Brennan Lee Mulligan, who are two DMs that I love, have talked about. That's how you got Victor
Yeah.
for Matt Mercer.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
how you got Galir for Brennan Lee Mulligan.
Yeah.
These two NPCs that weren't supposed to be anything that just turned into absolute fan favorites.
Oh, yeah. Like, Victor wasn't even supposed to be a character.
No,
Matt
not
Mercer
at
even
all.
said it. Literally, Victor came out of because Percy wanted black powder. That was it. That was the only reason Victor ever like came to be. It's because, and like you can even tell between the first and second time between Matt Mercer of the first time he plays Victor and the second time he plays Victor, there's a slight difference, but it's still the same.
Yep, it really is. And I adore how that happens. And I take it you're not as familiar with Dimension 20. For folks who are not as familiar with Critical Role, this is a campaign 1 character that also ends up in the Amazon show as well. But he's just this like absolute goblin of a creature. He's not a goblin, just
He's
like I believe he's either human or halfling. Yeah, it's one of the two. He's human, but he's just this absolute nutcase who it just deals in this what to most people in this world is a byproduct of mining that nobody cares about, that really only Percy at that point realizes has value. Percy and Anna, but that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, the with Galir in Dimension 20, Galir is just the father-in-law of one of the PCs that really was just going to drive her to school at one point, but he is just the saddest elf. He's like, I don't know if you've ever seen a fat elf with a comb over, but that's Galir. And he ends up being somebody that PC latches onto and is like, oh, we're going to take you with us. He's just a guy.
Yeah.
Like all of his stats almost are either 0 or negatives because he's just a guy.
Yeah.
And he eats yogurt all the time, and that's kind of it. But like you're saying, Brennan Lee Mulligan was not intending. He's talked about this. He was not intending for it to become a thing, and now it's like the Galir effect, right? It's always going to be the NPC you least suspect.
Yeah.
So when Raiko walked in the door, Sienna, even in her backstory, I've said that Sienna doesn't really have a lot of romantic experience. So she's always focused on the project. It's always the project. It's always what she's doing. She's either tinkering or she's on a mission or whatever it is. And she just kind of doesn't have space in her brain for this shit unless somebody forces her to. Not intentionally. It's just that magnetism of the person. I think like you would call it Demi, really, because I think she's just not really thinking about that until she does. Raiko walked in. I'm talking like even as the player, I was not expecting this, but I literally started fidgeting as soon as he started talking. And he's so fucking cute. Like, I wasn't ready for how cute he is.
And I even told Mel this afterwards. It's like, I literally was not thinking of Raiko being a love interest for Sienna. Because I'm like, I mean, for all intents and purposes, he's just a kid.
Yeah.
Like, he's in his late 20s. He's 28. He didn't start smithing until 18. Like, he did small stuff, but he never really did it as a job until 18. For all intents and purposes, he's still just a kid. And I was like, he's just going to be this guy who comes in, who has a real passion for preserving metalwork around the city. And then I think it was like...
When did you realize that I was RPing Sienna being like, oh my God?
Well, I mean, he's gonna be nervous anyways, because the only other real woman he's been around is Lorna, besides his sister. Yeah. And like his aunt and mom, like he doesn't get out. Like he doesn't at all. Like if he's out and about, he's with either his sister-in-law, mother, aunt. Like that's who he's with.
Running errands. Yeah,
or running errands by himself, where he's keeping to himself. Like he doesn't get out. And it was like, so of course, here's this new female. He's gonna be nervous.
Yeah.
And I think the moment I realized that Sienna was getting giddy, like little girl giddy, like, oh my gosh, he's cute, like high school girl, was when they were sitting down eating lunch.
Okay.
And you kept like talking over like and like fidgeting and everything, and I was like, oh, okay, this is happening. But of
Oh
course,
my
like,
god, that's great.
I don't even think, like, he himself is nervous around her. So it's like,
Yeah.
I don't think he picks it up. It's just more of, okay, I'm nervous. Like,
Yeah,
thanks.
she's nervous. The whole thing.
Yeah.
For me, it was you had the whole interaction. So Raiko comes in, he puts the armor stand down, and he's like, "You put the armor stand down. Anything else you need?" And Lorna's like, "Yeah, our lunch." And, and he's like, "Of course I brought lunch." And then Lorna gives him crap about it until he decides to go sit off on the corner, basically away from everybody. And this whole interaction happens. And Sienna just started like examining this very basic, not interesting armor stand because she needed to give herself something to do. And in that moment, I was like, oh no, this is happening. This is for sure happening.
But it was just like, okay, I'm here for it. But let's see where this goes. Because, like, even before you told me of what you had spoke to one or the other players, I'll leave the player vague for a reason. That I could already sense that was probably gonna happen.
I'm glad I wasn't the only one. And of course, I'm sorry, audience, we're talking about something you have no idea about, and that's intentional. But I honestly, the other player didn't see it coming. Like,
Yeah.
when I talked to them about it, they actually hadn't considered it. So it just makes me really happy.
I mean, just the interactions between the two, it was just like, okay,
Yeah.
like I can see this happening.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna be
that's
way
why I
down
also
the
wasn't
line.
expecting.
It's gonna be way down the
Mhm.
line. But yeah, like I can potentially see this happening.
Yep. This came out of nowhere.
This one just
Right.
completely
Raiko came out of nowhere.
No, this if I had to equate it, this was actually kind of like Melora Ryson. Where I
Really? I
didn't
didn't
expect
realize that Melora Ryson was so sudden.
I mean, I've told you in the past where like I brought in Melora as she could fall in love, but she's gonna have a very hard heart to open up.
Real quick, Melora is in a different campaign that
Yes.
Shaline is part of.
Yes.
That is on the Pathfinder system. Totally different group of people, totally different thing. But I love
private.
this story.
It's a private game. So
and private. So but Shalene's looped me in on some of this romance between these two characters, and I love it.
Basically, Melora is my human ranger. She is a widow, and I basically had told the DM, like, she's gonna be hard to fall in love with. Yeah, she'll probably eventually fall in love, but it's gonna take a while. And he had this NPC. This NPC was basically just there to provide information, to kind of give like some help to the party and whatnot. Like his NPC, Ryson, was only supposed to be that. And the more like, of course, I joked about it out of game, but it was like really in game, like there was no interest.
Well, like you said, she was still very much thinking about her husband.
Yeah. Until he basically asked her a question about the necklace she wore. And that's what opened the door. Like, and then as we kept going, like over the time, I could just sense Melora being like, oh no, I'm falling for this man.
Yeah.
But yet she still had that like real, like, I don't know if I can love him though. Like, can I love him while still, in a sense, loving my husband who had passed? And it did come down to where he's like, yeah, you got to be happy. I don't think your husband would want you to sit here and mourn him the rest of your life.
Yeah. And from what I understand, like a lot of people go through that after they lose their spouse, where there's just like a period of time where they can't even entertain the idea of thinking of anyone else that way. But then something will happen, something will change that. And it's always this almost like moral feeling like you're cheating on somebody that's not there.
Yeah. And that's a real thing Melora went through.
Yeah.
And it like I said, the relationship just happened. Because
Yeah.
I was talking with the DM, because it's his NPC, afterwards about it. He's like, yeah, I wasn't expecting Ryson to fall in love. Because
Mm-hmm.
Ryson was supposed to be there just for information.
Yeah.
And
That was the only reason.
they struck up a bond because they both had lost a spouse. He lost his
Yeah.
first wife. She lost her husband, so they bonded over that. They bonded over, like, after she finally was able to open up to him about her son, that they both had kids.
Yeah.
And so after that, the bond just formed
Yeah.
into romance. And I love it when it just organically happens like that.
Yeah, when it's completely unplanned. Obviously, it's important to, like, if it's a PC to PC thing, it's important to talk about it. It's also important, like, if it's a PC to NPC thing, make sure that the player and the DM are on the same page about it. But once you've cleared that,
Yeah.
like, you know, I'll follow where the narrative takes you.
Yeah.
And like I said, Melody was not expecting this, because Melody doesn't do this shit. But it just
It
was,
happened.
it happened. I was in the moment as Sienna, and like I said, like, it just, your characters will just do shit sometimes,
Yeah.
and you're just kind of along for the ride.
Yeah, and I'll even relate it back to Kavoria and Ignacio. Like,
Yeah.
I had already. So here's actually a fun fact, actually, um, and this is no longer the case. Kavoria was actually not K to begin with.
Really? Oh, I think you told me this.
Yes.
That's right.
Kavoria was just supposed to be somebody who had information on who K was.
Yeah.
Kavoria was supposed to kind of be that, like, oh my gosh, it's her, only to turn around and be like, no, it's not me. But that's
Gotcha.
when Biggs was still going to be part of the party.
Yeah.
When Kabu approached me saying, hey, I need to step away, that kind of plan changed. It completely changed. And I was like, they're going to need another close range fighter until we can get somebody to kind of be another close range fighter. It makes more perfect sense for Kavoria to be K, because then there's going to be this real want for Ignacio to keep her along.
Yeah. 100%. I wasn't expecting Kavoria to stick with us once we got Ellery, but I'm actually really glad that she did, because I love that sort of attitude that she has of, wherever Ignacio goes, I'll follow. Because it's not even like, it's not that she doesn't have her own agency.
Yeah.
It's that she's making her own choices here, and she wants to be with him, because they've already lost 5 years, right? And he's human. She knows that she doesn't have a whole lot of time with him.
Yeah, well, and not only that, but she's also a follower of Revenge herself. She's a paladin of his. And when Ignacio revealed that he was his champion, she got this real sense of, I need to protect you.
Yeah.
As a paladin of Revenge, I need to protect the champion of Revenge. So
yeah, I mean, not just that, but also, she's, alongside being a paladin of Revenge, it's also, she knows at this point now that there's a legitimate threat to all the champions.
Yeah. So the fact that she was going to stay on even when Ellery joined, it was more of, the one side, I've lost 5 years with the man I loved. I'm glad he still had feelings. Because when he had said, going back for a second, back to episode 4, when he had asked her, dare I ask, do you still have feelings for me? I had fully, I was going to be like, yes, but I had fully expected Rolando to have Ignacio just cut it.
Really?
I was fully, because of his sigh. The sigh he had, It was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, he's going to reject her. He's going to say, I thank you, but
Mm-hmm. Like
I
it's been
don't,
too
f-
long.
I don't feel the same anymore. I'm glad to now know who Kay was,
Yeah.
but I think it's been too long. I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
had fully expected that to come out of his mouth. Because
Mm-hmm.
which would have been fine. For me, it would have been fine. As a player in Rolando's Sunday campaign, which is where Melora is from, I had, because we already had Melora and Ryson at this point, I had fully expected him to be like, nah.
Yeah.
And I would have been A-okay with it. Like,
Yeah.
be like, okay, I'm glad we finally connected again. I'm glad that I could finally tell you, like, in person my feelings. And Kavoria would have been satisfied.
Yeah.
Because she would have had closure.
Yeah.
She would have been like, okay. So yeah, the fact that he was like, I was hoping to find Kay.
Yeah. It was a nice twist. It was a really nice surprise.
Yeah. And it like stuff like that organically. Like I even think to myself that, and I haven't really asked him this, but kind of just how that situation went.
Mm-hmm.
I'm almost positive that he also himself had to sit there for a moment and think,
Mm-hmm.
which way do I want to go?
Yeah.
Which way do I want to go with this?
100%.
Because like I said, like he could have just said, I'm sorry, the feelings are not there anymore. I'm glad that I found out who Kay was.
It gives me closure,
Gives
but
me
yeah.
closure. I hope you have a great rest of your life, and just walked away.
Yeah.
And Kavoria would have been satisfied because at least she was able to tell him her feelings in person.
Yeah. Instead
And
of through the letter where they had
right.
the misconnection.
And not only that, like, yeah, she would have been sad because she saved herself.
Yeah.
She never saw anybody in those 5 years because she's like, one day I'm going to find him again.
Yeah.
And like, at least in this way, she would have had closure. She would never had to worry about like whether he's still out there looking for her or anything. But yeah, the fact that it organically was like, yeah, no, I still do like you.
Yeah. I love the way that turned out.
Because
Really good.
it's like he said, like they were classmates with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so it opened up for Ignacio to think how their history would have been. Would it have been like, did he have a crush on her as well?
Mm-hmm.
It opened up that door. And it was like, and the fact that it was the person who he thought it was. Like, stuff like that. I love
Mm-hmm.
it when relationships just organically happen.
when the plan comes together.
Yeah.
It's true. It's great. Going back to, I'm sorry.
I know, we keep getting on tangents, but this is us. This is what this is for.
It is. It's true. Going back to when Raiko and Maka and Lorna and Sienna sit down to have lunch, one of my favorite moments is absolutely the dagger when Raiko pulls it out and says, "Yeah, Elrond helped me make this." Sienna is also able to show him her warhammer that she had gotten from Elrond, and just that sort of mutual respect of all of it made me really happy. And then also, you did a thing where as soon as Sienna mentioned how old she was, 63, Raiko sort of scooted away a little bit because he's 28 and he's like, "Oh, you're older than me by a lot.
You
It's
are
okay."
way older than me.
Literally twice my age. And yeah, I loved that moment of just like, oh boy. And of course, Sienna's been in the forge all morning, by the way.
Yeah.
I was mentioning too, like, your girl has been sweating and her hair is all sorts of like frizzed out on the temples, and she's not looking
Pretty
hot
by
from a
any-
normal perspective.
Yeah.
But this is a family of Smiths.
Yeah.
This is what they do and they get it. So it just made me happy that it was like this sort of, I don't think they were flirting per se, but there was definitely a connection there. And
Yeah.
obviously Maka and Lorna picked up on it.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Like, because you also have to realize, like, they've been watching Raiko turn into this young man.
Mm-hmm.
And they want the best for him. They want him to find somebody for him. Like, he needs to find that person that is his person. Whether it be male, female, or in between. They just want him to find his person. And I think they picked up on, okay, maybe? Question mark?
Yeah. And this is still like day 1/hour 1 of this attraction for Sienna, but the thing that I'm going to have fun RPing, because I'm the sadist, is the fact that Sienna's just passing through.
Yeah.
Like they could fall for each other so hard right now, and Sienna may never be back.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things where they're going to have to address, do they enjoy the time that they have, or do they try to save each other's emotions and just sort of keep their distance? But that's going to be for another day.
Yeah.
But Sienna's definitely excited because also Maka mentioned first thing in the morning, this was based on what you said, even before you realized that this was going to be a thing, that Raiko is really protective of his forge, and he doesn't really let other people in there, like, especially if he's going to be working in there. Like, he gave permission for this sort of rental to happen, but past that, and Raiko was like, you can come by my forge anytime.
Yeah, he basically did. And it was, granted, this was after they had spent this time together trying to save the relief, that he's just like, well, even when you got ready to leave because you knew you needed to go, like, tell Savorian this information, Sienna was like, I don't normally leave forges in a mess. I usually clean up and make it even better. And Raiko, like, knew that was genuine.
Yeah.
But he, at the same time, like, he picked up on, this is a serious matter that needs to be taken care of now. Who cares what the forge is looking like right now? Go.
Yeah, and for Sienna, that sort of, the fact that he gets it and immediately gets it, and also like reveres this historical piece the way that she does, is massive. Like I even said it like during our RP, like it's the same sort of reaction that she had to Shinya offering her his journal, of understanding like this is so huge to share something so personal, but also it goes to show like it was a big gesture for her as a lover of history and a lover of wanting to preserve that history. So for seeing that same sort of passion for history in him, like especially so they go back into the forge after lunch, and she shows Raiko the alloy that she's working on, and it's not really coming together the way that she wants it to, and he calls it out. He's like, there's some delamination happening where the metals are separating. He calls it out, and not in a mean way. He's just like, hey, you're seeing some of this. And she's like, yeah, I really don't know what to do about it. And he gives her some suggestions. And thanks to the suggestions, by the way, poetic dice rolls, I got a nat 20 on it.
Yes.
The alloy came together finally. So like there's also the ability for the two of them to talk shop, which again, Sienna is all about her project. She's never really been able to talk shop with somebody else, because there aren't a lot of people like her around.
No, like I even in your history, I think there was really only one person you were able to talk shop about, and it was your it was your fellow Alexander engineer.
Yeah, who we ended up really only getting together long term because it fueled our academic competition.
Yeah. You only had one night, One night stand is probably the best way to describe it.
Pretty much.
But it was you basically fueled each other's like passion and drive, which
Yeah.
is why the school couldn't help but give both of you this esteemed title,
Yeah.
because they saw the
Yeah.
passion for like becoming like the engineering and whatnot.
Yeah, that want to create that
Yeah.
that excitement. And I'm sure that the other person has, I don't know if we're not mentioning his name, but because I do remember his name.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could absolutely see that being a thing. But with Raiko, like, this is the first person that she's met that is like, not only does he have the ability to craft and craft well, but he also has this passion for history.
Yeah.
So he ends up going back to Savorian too, to pick up the relief from Caspin,
Yeah.
which
I
is,
think we need to also mention that this is supposed to be his day off.
yeah, it's supposed to be Raiko's day off, and
he's doing this all willingly.
Yeah, he walked in the door being like, all right, here's your armor, here's your lunch, you need anything else? And by the time we get here, he's fully invested in what's going
on. Oh yeah.
But also, before he gets the relief, he like runs into the door.
I'll leave you to be. And he's like walking backwards as he's talking, runs into the door, and then pulls the door open and awkwardly slips out.
That was really cute.
Yeah, because like it goes back to like the nervousness. Like he's nervous around another female who's not family. Doesn't quite know how to like act. Like, do I just like consider you like cool, or like do I need to be? But he's such a gentleman too.
Yes.
He's
definitely got that. I was raised around a lot of women, so I know very much how to handle myself. Like full respect also of women, but also just like he knows that he needs to carry himself in a certain way.
Yeah.
He's so precious. Like, I love the way you RP him so much. Like, I was listening to our one-sided thing on the recording that you sent me because I love the way that you portray Raiko. Like, I can remember what I said, but I can just listen to you play Raiko all day.
Well, not only that, but he knows he has two sisters who will literally kick his butt if he doesn't treat a woman correctly.
Yeah. Oh my god, I can't wait to get to the tail end of this where we say the thing that Maka said to him, because I was dying. But he does go and get the relief.
Yes, he goes and gets the relief and brings it back.
Yeah, and we find out that the relief is in much worse shape than we originally thought.
Like, even though in the beginning Sienna did have a chance to go up close to it, she really couldn't see how bad this of a shape this relief was in.
Yeah.
It wasn't until you got it there and it was on the floor that you were really able to see how brittle, and there was more cracks in it that you just couldn't see at the angle you were at.
Because a lot of them are in the back. Like, a lot of them are actually, because it's worse because a lot of the cracks are in the back where the structural integrity of the piece is supposed to be. Yeah, so they get there, they get the relief, and the very first thing that gets identified is how brittle it is, and that actually trying to reinforce this is even going to be more delicate than we thought. And all of that was hinted at when it was when we were discussing with Savorin, and basically saying like, yeah, Maka's aunt made the brackets, but she was too nervous. So was Maka. Like, they were too nervous to touch it. Number one, because they didn't to repair it, because they didn't have experience in carving, sure, but they also could tell how bad it was, and Sienna didn't catch that really to start.
Well, even so, Maka was confident enough to do the repair, but she wasn't confident enough to actually recarve where she needed to in order to bring back what would have been replaced.
Mm-hmm.
Raiko was also in the same thing. He could repair it, but even though he is more confident in his metal carving, with something so brittle and so old, he didn't feel comfortable enough.
He respects it too much.
He
Like,
respected
to
it.
try to do
Yeah.
it and then break it.
He respected it too much that it would probably just be best if it just stays.
Yeah. Yeah. And with Sienna's mom, Petra, being somebody who taught her engraving, it was stone engraving, but it's the same principles of
Yeah.
making sure you've got the structural integrity. Sienna's quite confident in her carving skills, but also didn't quite realize how bad it was. Like, as soon as she realized how bad it was, there's definitely this moment of, I don't know if it's wise for us to do this. She is fully of the opinion that this does not need to be rehung as it is. It cannot be. It actually might break just doing that. So no matter what, they're going to reinforce it. But the question becomes, do you leave this outdoors where it's going to continue to be eroded by rain and sand and wind and whatnot? Or do we make a copy of it? So, more than anything else, the very first thing that Sienna and Raiko do with the relief is they take an imprint of it. So, Raiko goes and gets some clay, brings it back, and together he and Sienna are able to very gently take an impression of the relief, so that if the worst happens and this thing shatters, they still have the relief of it to where they can pour it and at the very least remake a pretty faithful copy.
Yeah. And I think that was the first time Sienna really realized, and maybe even you, that Raiko was passionate about preserving the history. Because I think even then at that point he said there's a lot of metalwork within the city that are aging, and he wants to find a way to help preserve it.
I want you to know Sienna's heart skipped when that happened, when he said that. Like, it was definitely a moment of, oh, you get it. Oh, you feel the way I do. Oh, okay. And like, no matter what happens, Sienna's going to teach Raiko everything that she knows about preservation, about carving, and about like that sort of thing. So they're going to do the relief first, but like, depending on how long we're here, it's something that she would want to do.
Yeah. And I think that was like also the first moment for me as the person who was behind Raiko. That was the first time he was comfortable. He wasn't as nervous anymore. Like, the nerves melted away because here he is. He's focused on preserving something with somebody who also wants to preserve it. And so the nerves just kind of melted away for him.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for her too, like as soon as they started working, the sort of fidgety, sort of like looking away bit melted away. Oh, speaking of looking away, your boy can do druidcraft. Are you kidding me?
As you say druidcraft, Raiko's finger just starts waving like this. And there's a flower in front of you. Yes!
Sienna absolutely squeaked as soon as this man made a flower out of nothing because she just loves that shit.
Yeah, right. Actually,
I forgot about that until just now.
Actually, both Raiko and Maka are druids.
That's incredible.
Lorna is a... I think you can guess.
I'm thinking.
Good old
Sorry,
barbarian.
Yes.
Although Lorna doesn't fight as much, but she definitely was trained in the ways. But she's really
utilizing her anger for good.
Yeah, she's really more of a lover, not a fighter. But at the same time, like, if it comes to protecting her family, she is absolutely going to go into a rage and protect her family. It's kind of like Aspen.
Yeah,
she's gonna she'll 100% go mama bear.
Absolutely.
And
I love Lorna. I
Yeah.
love the idea that she's so fierce that like Maka, who's clearly a buff individual, is gonna be like, nope, I'm not messing with that. Oh my god. So yeah, like Raiko doing Druidcraft definitely made her heart skip a little bit, and then the historical piece and
Yeah.
the passion for it. From there, we made the impression,
Mm.
and then we started to examine the relief, and we were like, okay, we're going to need. We got the alloy. We knew that the aging process finished. So we have all the tools that we need to work with, but we needed to wait because with something like this, the owner needs to make a decision.
Yeah.
Basically, do you allow the craftspeople to try it and potentially lose the piece, or uh,
Keep the
do you
piece
not
as
and keep it?
is and just rehome it. Like
Yeah.
reinforce the back so it's not gonna like crumble just hanging or sitting in a box,
Mm-hmm.
and just keep it inside and then make a new one now that you have the impression of it.
Yeah. Exactly.
And the
And I
rules
think
for making that impression were really good.
they were so good. I was pleased with that because of like, dang it,
Yeah.
had that been messed up, that would have been a problem. Uh, they could always try it again, but the more times, anytime you're handling something that old, you're taking a risk every time you touch it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was really pleased with how that went. And again, we love the dice's storytelling ability.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so after we took the impression and had that conversation, Raiko said that he was going to be kind enough to go check in with Savorin. And in the meantime, while we were waiting to have that conversation, we moved the piece into Maka's smithery space because she had a little bit more room,
She had a
and
little
she
bit more
cleared off.
room, and she had a table that would be safe for it.
Yeah, and she provided like some soft cover, like a soft
Yeah.
piece of cloth to put over it and everything. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we needed time for the clay to dry. So we were sort of laying it out, and Raiko started noticing some things because Raiko is very observant.
Yeah, Raiko was looking at the piece, just kind of marveling it really, because of course he's been to Savorian too a while. Their preferred place is the first one, Savorian stay, the first one, because that it's closer to where their mother lives and whatnot. They live closer to the forge, but they like to go up there because then they can get with their mom and their aunt more often than not. So that's typically where they like to go. But he had been to Sephorian too countless times and like always marveled at it. But this was the first time he actually could see it.
Yeah.
And so him as a smith, of course, to be a smith, you have to love detail. You have to love detail in order to make your pieces beautiful but yet strong.
Yeah.
And
Like
usable.
you can be a regular smith that's just churning out sort of the basics
Yeah.
without worrying about detail too much. But if you want to be a true artist, which he does because of his connection to Elrond, like, yeah, he's very good at that.
I mean, even Maka herself loves that small detail, those small little details. And as he's looking at the piece, he sees Alexander.
Which, of course, as soon as he points that out, Sienna she gets so excited because she like ends up running into the other room and grabbing her notebook with the Factorio Mephisto and coming back in, and she's like, I went to school. I went to school with at the Alexandra University. It's a different name now, but that's fine. And just sort of points out like he was known as a champion of fortune, but he was also an engineer, and so very much a personal hero of hers. And of course, not even notating that she basically said the same thing to Biggs right before he left. Like, this is massive influence on what she does. And she does not mention that she's an Alexander engineer. She doesn't really do that. If somebody knows of what Alexander engineers are, they usually identify the pin, and she leaves it at that. But she doesn't call it out very intentionally because she doesn't really want like special treatment or anything from it. but she just got so excited that the Alexander name was on there. And then we started to notice other details.
Yeah. As he's looking, like even Sienna thought this was a piece by him. I
Yeah.
didn't know he did stuff like this. Like you started thinking that this was his piece, but that's when he started noticing, no, there's more names, and he started reading out the names that were on it. Then you, Momoyo, stuck out to you as well because you knew her. She was your aunt.
Mm-hmm.
She is your
Yeah.
aunt.
Yeah. Like there were other names that Sienna did not recognize that
Yeah.
Raiko read out, like Gravin Marinto, Sakura Vansuki, Rentaro Suma, Jirvio Centauri, Kiba Stelko. Like none of those names
Shatako.
really have a connection for.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Shatako.
Shitelko. She doesn't really have a connection to them except for maybe Jirvio Centauri because she's kind of heard it before. We'll talk about that another time.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, we can even talk about it now because Centauri University is not necessarily a rival to the school you went to, but is another fellow university within Indivora. So Sienna recognizes the name Centauri, but has no connection.
Exactly. So but the presence of Alexander and Momio together, those two are two people that she knows for a fact are or were champions of the gods.
Mm-hmm.
With you being a past champion of Darag, Akira is now, but she was a past champion of Darag,
Mm-hmm.
and then Dimitri Alexander being the champion of Fortune. So she puts together from context clues that there are 7 people, there are 7 primes. This isn't the primes; these are their champions.
Yeah.
And she flips out a little bit. She's like, "Oh my god, it's champions! It's champions!" And they look closer, and they can kind of see like the facial details, and it verifies Sienna's suspicion because the very, very faded lines that she can see that would make up Yu's face match her recollection of her aunt that she just met the week prior.
Yeah. And then, like, he kept looking more and more, and he sees a name, but it's very faded. You make out LUFIA.
Shut up. Shut up.
But Sienna picks it up as LUFIA.
And that's when I screamed at Shaline, shut up, like out of pure like player excitement, because Sienna's clan is the Lufia clan.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, what's going on? So based on the location of it, Sienna figures out that it's the artist's signature. So she's like, oh, okay, so somebody from the clan or somebody who's named after the clan did this. We realized throughout this examination of it that the relief itself is thousands of years old.
Yeah.
It is ancient. It goes back to the Great Battle. So probably not somebody that she personally knows, but she's like, okay, it's somebody from the Lufia clan. That explains the detail, the quality of the work, because, you know, her mom, again, stone carver, you know, she comes from a coal mining clan, but there's also a lot of artistry that's within that they're very proud of. So it makes sense, but it's just like, oh, it's here in Durlin instead of being like in Devora or somewhere else in Ultreese.
Yeah. And I mean, Sienna would know there is a family within the Lufia clan that does have the name Lufia. They are the ones who started the clan. And it's just it's been added on to over the thousands of years that it's been there. Different families, including your family, the Nishiyamas.
Mm-hmm. Which, you know, she didn't really assume that there was any sort of personal connection until Maka started asking something.
Maka, you can see she's thinking. Wasn't the previous owner of that inn a dwarf? What are the odds that his family was from the same clan. I mean, I know dwarves have longer lives than myself and humans. Uh, I think he was upwards of 1,000. I think. Wasn't his last name Nishiyama? Yeah, Maka was like she was remembering because she was there. She grew up in Durlan essentially, so she was well aware that the Savorian was actually a previous inn. Savorian 2, I should say, was a previous inn, and Savoran wanted to preserve the building
Yeah.
because she saw great like architecture and artistry within like the ones that built it. She wanted to preserve it. She did not want the inn to go to somebody else who was going to change it.
Yeah.
Because
Or not respect it too.
well, and even in the rooms, there's such beautiful like carving and workmanship within the rooms themselves that Savorin wanted to preserve. And
That's awesome.
so that's why she built it. But Maka was like, wasn't the last owner a dwarf? And like between
It just freezes for a second.
yeah, like they're thinking like they're trying to remember this, and Raiko was like, yeah, I think it was, and I think even Sienna chimes in. It's like, yeah, I think that's what Savorin said.
Yeah, that's right.
And Maka is like, wasn't the last name Nishiyama?
And even I, as the player, was just like, oh, what now? Sienna said, I think, pardon me?
Yeah. And Raiko was the one that actually like said it again. I think the previous owner was Nishiyama.
And Sienna just sat down. She's just like, okay.
It's like, okay, hello. I don't know how much more it can take.
Raiko bent down and was like, are you okay? And I was like, uh-huh. It was so good. And then when he asked, like, what's going on? And just like, oh, I don't think I ever fully introduced myself.
Yeah.
My name is Sienna Nishiyama. And then he got really sweet. Not that he wasn't sweet before, but like he said a couple of very sweet things right after that. I was just like, well, now I really want to preserve it.
Well, yeah, because at that point, like, now there's like a real personal connection to this.
Yeah,
between
100%.
Sienna and this relief. It's like,
Yeah.
no, okay, yeah, I really want to preserve this now. Like, we have to find a way to preserve it.
Yeah, it was so incredibly sweet. And for me, like those last bits, and you were so right about the music too, because even listening to the recording, that what did catch, like, it was such a good moment with the music. I am so sorry that the computer decided to be a butthead.
I know. I'm so sorry that we just don't have it. Like, we have my side, but we don't have anything of Mel. And I'm like, oh, because it was so perfect. Like, I've said this to Mel before. Very few times do I actually like change the music to match. There's only one time. It's when we were actually in this past episode when we were talking about the destruction happening. I changed the music to be a more like intense, suspenseful music while we were talking about it, because that's what it is. There's this intense moment, so I wanted to make sure we had an intense background. And then I swapped it back to this more when the girls went off on Ami to this more gentle thing. And I think I actually started the playlist on the same song that Sienna flew on back in Shaline. I purposely put it on that one just because I wanted the same bam, it like power, but
It
yet
gives the perfect
grace.
vibe for that sort of like wonder
Yeah.
that it would be to fly over a city like that.
Well,
It's
and
so good.
it's powerful but yet graceful at the same time, which is
Yeah,
what
and subtle.
which is what like that Kalain flyover was.
Yeah.
So I wanted to mirror that. And like I said, that was very few times that I've done it. When we were recording this, I simply just put on a playlist and let it go.
Yep.
Like
and it still landed.
And I swear, like I always say this: the music knows.
Yep.
The music knows
really
when
does.
it's, and I put it on shuffle.
Yeah.
I put it on shuffle, so I have no idea what the next song is gonna be. It just happens.
Even when I'm streaming, like what I normally have on is a very similar playlist. I think it might even be the same playlist, but it's at a different interval because we're streaming separately.
Yeah.
And all I do is if we're in a battle, I'll switch over to the battle side. But most of the time, it's on this sort of peaceful, sort of RP centric thing. And yeah, somehow just in a couple of the VODs, it's just been absolutely perfect. And the way that you mentioned that this landed was it was spot on. It was great.
Yeah, the fact that it was that same song, it's one of three powerful, like it just has this gradualness about it to where even at the highest point, it's still like very peaceful and emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And it was
makes
just
me cry every time.
I have the same three songs on a stream playlist that I have, and every single time whenever it comes on, I'm like, okay guys, I'm sorry, I've got to sit here for a second because I'm like trying to not cry.
Like I need a minute.
But yeah,
man.
like I love it when the music and the moment match.
Yeah. Because neither of us, it's not that either of us are incapable of going in and making those edits. It's that we don't have time.
Yeah.
So the fact that just the fates and the stars align and all of that make it so that in these powerful moments where we run into, and obviously you can't really fully plan those in RP. They just kind of happen.
They happen, yeah.
The fact that the music has kind of supported that 100% of the time has been fantastic.
Yeah. Like, I think the only time I've actually edited music in to match the situation is the most recent creating one. At the very end, because I forgot to add the source for Epidemic. I had Epidemic going on in my ears, but I forgot to add it to the scene. So I had to put the music in, and at that point, that's when I was just like, no, I need to find music that fits the situation. And that was like the only time I actually went in and did that. All the other times, it's just like I just put on the playlist and let it go.
Yeah, 100%. Well, so we have all of these revelations with the relief, and Sienna just kind of needs a break.
Yeah.
and we've also, for the recording, we're pretty much out of time at that point. So Raiko, very sweetly, offers to walk Sienna back to the inn. And Sienna's not somebody who would normally take someone up on that. She's like, oh, I'm fine. Like, she would normally just like, yeah, I'm good. But it's Raiko. So she says yes.
Yeah.
And they go to walk away, and Maka's like, well, she claps him on the shoulder. Just be home by 11. And of course my brain is like, it's like 1 p.m. in the game. So it took me a minute to go like, oh, she's talking PM, not AM. Got it.
She gives a wink. And she clasps her brother's shoulder. Just be back by 11. And Raiko goes complete red. Sister. I'm kidding. Well, not only that, but it was more of like she wanted to tease her brother because once again,
Mm-hmm.
her brother doesn't get out.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a moment that he really started showing interest in somebody that him and
Yeah.
Lorna picked up on.
Yeah.
And it was like, all right, be back by 11. Like, teasingly. But of
It was
course,
so
she's just
cute.
like, nah, you get back however you are. You're a grown man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like Sienna also just kind of had that moment where he like ran into the door leaving the smith. Sienna kind of ran into the door going back into the inn.
Yeah.
Just because their conversation's really cute, and just again that passion of his shows through, and they talk about it a little bit more on the way to the end that with I mean Raiko asked for her help to learn how to do these carvings and learn how to restore these pieces. And she's so on board with that, and just being able to talk to him about that was great. And I don't think they have specific plans outside of like I'll see you at the smith. They don't have like a date or anything.
Mm-mm.
That's fully not what's happening, but they are going to work together, and she knows that. And so yeah, they're gonna Raiko at this point says I'm gonna go check in with Savorin up at the Savorian stay, the first one, and get back to you. But for now, you check in with your party because, again, we're doing this as a one-on-one separate of the main campaign. So when we hit the game Tuesday, it's going to be let's figure out what the rest of the party's doing.
Yeah, let's figure out what the rest of the party's doing during this time because Sienna is going to be unavailable up until
Yep.
about 1 o'clock. So it's like, all right, what's going on?
And they wouldn't necessarily know either because the only thing she had said in her note was, "I'll be in the blacksmith working when you wake up, more than likely." So yeah, this is I'm very excited just as a player to see what everybody else does. And there's obviously a lot available.
Yeah, and when we like went into this session, we also said like there's going to be times in this where it's going to be open for if the party decides to check in.
Yeah.
Like so yeah, it might not happen in the one-on-one, but it'll happen in the main campaign. So yeah, we can certainly have the party go check in on Sienna, see how she's doing. And whatnot. Like that's available to the party to do.
Totally. Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot for just separate of the one-on-one stuff with Raiko, like and Maka and Lorna. There's obviously everything that happened going back to the beginning of this with the vision and the information that she's gotten from you and from her father. It's all relevant to the party.
Yeah.
So it's important that she shares that. And actually, I've been thinking a lot about like Sienna knows Ignacio and Serafina are both, clerics of obviously Ignacio's a bard, but they're both followers of a deity. So I think she would ask for their help with the research and where to look for this stuff.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
they have a better understanding of where to look, like you said. But at the same time, like they may not have the answers either.
Yeah. And I'm as a player separately too. I'm obviously looking forward to going up to the stock house, the storehouse, for Derwin because there's somebody who's going to end up mattering a bit to Sienna. I'm curious when you plan to make it official, like how you plan to do that. I'm not asking. I'm just saying I'm excited. I'm excited to know that. I don't know if it has anything to do with Cece.
It does
but
not.
I
will tell you this: it does not, because Cece is not a cleric.
Got it.
Or really much of anything pertaining to like godliness, because it's as I said, like after her husband was killed and her son was like, it's your fault, that's when she started turning away. Like her
Yeah.
faith has pretty much shattered.
Yeah. I'm curious. It'll all come down to the role play. Again, audience, this is very much, I have no idea how this conversation is going to go, but I'm curious if it will lead to Sienna asking her about her relationship with Sonara and what changed. Because obviously she knows that something changed because of the conversation,
Yeah.
but there's, she doesn't have any more information than that. So I'm going to keep coming back to what was on the sword in the 3-on-1 that we had for the last episode. I want to say 7 was faith and trust binds all. Like, I think that is such it's a powerful one-liner that's going to be pertinent, I think, a lot when you talk about relationships to gods and people, obviously, of
Yeah.
course, but like, I think it's for people who have faith, not like are naturally pious, what happens to change that? I think that's an
Yeah.
interesting thing to explore.
Yeah. And where does the trust come in even?
Yeah.
That binds everything. And that's
Mhm.
definitely something like not just Sienna, but the entire party has to find out.
Yeah. I know Ellery is definitely thinking about that too.
Yeah.
I'm loving watching Ellery sort of expand her viewpoint on the world. I think it's also cool to see because Serafina and Ellery are actually quite similar people.
Yeah.
In the level of exposure that they have and that sort of innocence that they have.
Mhm.
That is, I think, for Serafina coming out as more of a like wild child expression. For Ellery, it's just wonder and
Yeah.
overwhelm and all of those things. I just look forward to seeing more
Yeah.
of that from Katarina Marie and from Harper.
Yeah, especially since you and I had talked about it, but I honestly really should bring it up to Kat of
Yeah.
exploring the fact that there may be some things that Serafina is doing that may not align with Urania anymore.
Mm-hmm. You've mentioned a couple of things, but I knew what they were, but I'm not actually sure if Kat does. Like the mention that you made of sensing some disfavor there.
Yeah.
That's interesting to me. But also, it wasn't enough disfavor for her to not be able to be the one to inform the champion, right?
Yeah.
So, like
there's
how does she walk that line?
yeah. It's like where does Serafina see herself as a cleric of Durania? But
Mm-hmm.
also trying to be her own person because I'll say it here because this is a different space in the game. Serafina grew up in such a very strict household, for lack of a better way to say it.
Mm-hmm.
Her grandfather really was like, Gerania is the only god you should be worshiping right now. Don't worry about the other gods. You will do this, you will do that, you will do this, you will do that.
It's all very prescriptive.
Her grandfather basically drilled into her that Gerania is the only god who she should be worshiping. So the moment that she was able to finally be free and realize that she's her own person, which is why she went into sorcery.
Mm-hmm.
She knows that Gerania is her god, her goddess. She doesn't realize that maybe her actual ideals don't align with Gerania.
And even if she does realize that, it's going to be interesting. How much are we allowed to say about connections elsewhere, if you get my drift?
I will say this space is fine.
Okay. You've hinted at it a bit with Oryx on the Creedy side, with him receiving the figurine.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot in Oryx's background that we haven't been able to dig into yet. But this concept of being a cleric of one god, he is a cleric of Sunara, and potentially being a champion for potentially somebody else is an interesting thought. And you've mentioned before that even in the game that the gods, all of the primes want their people to be happy
Mm-hmm.
and want their people to kind of go where their hearts take them. So it's interesting to me because Seraphina would have no concept of that.
Mm-mm.
It would be almost like, having come up like in a religious household myself, like it would be this, there is only one answer, there is only one solution, anything else is heresy, anything else
Yeah.
is false. And that's not how the gods feel in this world
Mm-mm.
at all. This is very much a, if Gerania, like if Seraphina was to go to Gerania and say, I think my ideals better align with someone else, Gerania would probably support her in making a change.
100%.
But she doesn't know that. Her heart of hearts, if she figures out that she potentially would want to change,
Yeah.
the moment that she figures that out, it's going to be a lot of guilt and a lot of shame and a lot of, I can't say anything about this
Yeah.
for a long time until she has the opportunity to actually ask Gerania.
Well, and not only that, but once again, Seraphina grew up in such a strict household with her
Mhm.
grandfather saying Gerania is the only way. Yeah,
Mhm.
there are other gods, but no, Gerania is it.
Yeah.
She's gonna be like, no, Gerania is my goddess. She's mine. She's still gonna have a lot of that. I have to worship Gerania. I
Mhm.
can't worship anybody else. And I'm gonna say this, and it's not really a warning, but it happened even in Critical Role, even
Mhm.
when a cleric goes out of line of their god or goddess, all of a sudden they can't cleric anymore.
Yeah. It's like when Pike lost her connection to the Everlight.
The Everlight, yeah. She couldn't
Yeah.
cleric anymore. She couldn't heal. And
Yeah.
it devastated her. Now, granted, with Pike, her ideals were still with the Everlight.
Yeah.
It was just she had so many doubts within her that was preventing her from being that aligned.
Mhm.
In
Like I
this,
love
yeah,
that, like, you're lying to yourself
yeah.
concept.
With Seraphina, what I'm seeing is her ideals lie with Sunara.
Mhm.
Because Sunara is this more carefree. She's chaotic. She wants her followers to, one, care, but at the same time also have this care, not necessarily carelessness, but
Mhm.
a freedom of sorts.
Mhm. That Seraphina naturally has, but
Yeah,
she suppresses constantly.
yeah. Which is why you says I sense some disfavor. And
Mhm.
disfavor was the wrong word to use, but it was the only
Mhm.
word that you could use that would kind of tip Seraphina off.
Yeah.
That
It's more
maybe,
of discordance. Like
yeah,
there's just a dissonance there.
that something's going on. Something's not lining up anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like that. Seraphina has to come it upon herself to seek out the answer.
100%.
What's better? Do I stay with Gerania or do I look into another god? But then once again, it goes back to Gerania is the only god for me.
Mhm. She doesn't know she has options.
Yeah.
Which is
She,
why I think the connection in Creedy, if the two of them ever have a chance to meet, will be very interesting.
yeah. Because it will at least allow Seraphina to realize that, yes, I grew up worshiping and calling Gerania my goddess. That she won't be mad if I say, hey, Sonara's looking better.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, she's going to, with the connection that Sienna's experiencing with Tsunara, there's already been some of Sienna being like, show me how to do this, show me how to be pious, because I think I need to better understand. There's already been some of that, but I also think that there could be a two-way street there of show me how to be myself and be pious. And that's something that there's no part of her that's under any misconception that she's suddenly going to be some sort of cloistered individual.
Yeah.
And also, like, with all of this going on, there's nothing that Tsunara has said that makes her think she needs to. In fact, Tsunara specifically said at the end of episode 8, just keep being yourself. Just keep doing you. And that's so helpful, because had it been another god that says, I need you to adjust who you are, Sienna would not have latched onto that at all. Yeah. So I think it's just going to be interesting for Seraphina, if she's paying attention, to see like that you can have this godly connection that is not necessarily because Ignacio comes off pious. Ignacio comes off as a sort of classic cleric, even though he's not a cleric. He comes off that way. So I don't think Seraphina has any reason to look at him and see something different, whereas Sienna would represent something different.
Yeah. No, I don't.
So,
yeah, like, and I think I've said this in a separate stream, that Ignacio 100% picked up on what the god of death is all about.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and it's not really death. Like, it's not macabre. It's not even the same. No. I would say as the Raven Queen. It's not even the same as like that concept. It's very, very different, and I love that.
Yeah, I mean, revenge is all about not living your life to the fullest, and then when your time comes, then you can pass through.
Like making sure you live your life to the fullest.
Yeah. And I mean, and not end it before it's time. Like, and I will tell you right straight up, I told none of that to Rolando. He instantly picked it up. And I was like, you got it. Like, okay, my choice.
Got it in one.
My choice to have you as his champion confirmed.
Yeah.
Like, you instantly got what revenge is all about.
Yeah.
And
it's coming together in a cool way.
Yeah,
for him.
And that's what I'm even seeing with Sienna. Sienna is getting who Sonara is.
Yeah.
Jungo gets who Gerania is. It's these people who get who their gods are about and what they're for and what they represent, which is why they get chosen. And that's why I'm loving I can't wait to explore more of Oryx.
Yeah.
Because I know his background because you've told me. And everything, like the passion that Oryx had to find a different way lined up exactly with Zoot.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
It was like, it fell in line, and yes, he's a follower of Tsunara, but it doesn't mean he can't be the champion of a different god.
Yeah.
And I will bring this up. Gervio Centauri. Gervio Centauri was a follower of Revenge, actually.
Really?
Yes. He was a devout follower of Revenge, but a lot of his ideals about living life to the fullest, but in a fun way, lined up exactly with Senosha.
Really?
Which is why Senosha chose Gervio as his champion.
He wasn't Raven's champion. Okay. I actually wasn't sure because I knew that university had a lot of ties to Ravins and Ravins' teachings, especially around like the psychology side of the world. But yeah, I was curious. I didn't know which god he was the champion of.
Yeah, he is the champion of Sunosha / Sunara.
That's amazing. You know what's funny? This is going to be the second time I've brought up a very old rom-com called Raising Helen, but there's spoilers for Raising Helen if you're at all worried about it. It was released like in 2010 or something like that. I don't remember exactly. Point being, the premise of the story is that there's these kids, or these three kids that are they're the kids of one of these three sisters, and the sister that is the mom is very carefree and you know, she's still a mom, but she's got a very fun side to her. And her younger sister Helen is the same way, but she hasn't had kids, so she's just very much lived it up, you know, Manhattan, doing well, modeling world style. And her older sister Jenny is somebody that has had to take all of the responsibility and has kids and has very much had, like, she had to grow up very quickly. So again, spoilers. The sister who is the mom of the three kids dies. So does the dad. And so these kids are left without parents. And the question was never really asked who is going to raise them, but they did have a will. And everybody expected Jenny to be the one named because Jenny's the one that already has kids, already has this like life. And they don't pick Jenny. They pick Helen. And there are letters given to the two women to explain why. Helen's letter is just the lyrics to Whip It. That's the entire letter. And we don't get to hear the letter to Jenny until the very end of the movie. The letter to Jenny explains, Jenny, I know that you are the most responsible person I know, but I want my kids to have a little element of who I was. And Helen is so much like me that we think she can do it. And I'm grateful you would be willing to and able to, but we think she could do it. And you know, if you'll let this happen, please support her and love on her and all of those things. And it's a very, I love the way that the relationship plays out between Jenny and Helen throughout the movie, because it's rough, but yeah, I don't know. I've always loved that concept of, I wanted her to know who I was. And you're talking about that with these gods of like people who are like them. Those are the ones that are going to be champions, not necessarily, you know, the most devout or the most whatever. It's people who are like them.
Yeah. I mean, that's simply, and I just now saw something that you sent me. I can I can neither confirm nor deny, only because I myself don't know. That's something that I will have to bring up with the player. If this is a thing, but even still, the alignment is still there.
Oh yeah. For sure.
So yeah.
So nice crunchy story that you've set up here, Miss Shaline Tsuruga. And there's a lot more to come.
Yes.
So catch us on. Do you have any other questions that you want to ask or talk about, or do we want to wrap it?
I don't know. Do you want to talk a little bit about creating?
Oh yes, please. Oh my God. You mean the thing that I've written a 6,000 fucking fan fiction of my own goddamn character, which I'm kind of embarrassed about?
Oh,
sure. Let's talk creating.
Yeah, let's talk creating real quick, because I think while we're in this space, we should be able to talk about it. Because I feel like this is kind of just a side thing. Like,
hell yeah.
We really need to turn it into something, because this would be just really fun to just sit down and talk about.
We kind of need to, I would love to do this with the rest of the cast too.
Yeah.
Like, you should, so we're just going to plan real quick. Excuse me, audience. But like, do a one-on-one with everybody. Yeah. And then also we can get together as a group and talk about the episodes as they happen. That'd be great. Yeah. I fully support this idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, creating. My character's backstory is a walking trigger warning.
Yeah. Well, And not only
Same.
that, but I think I should also preface is that Crady is designed to be darker than the
Yeah.
main campaign. Though the way the Crady is when I was making Crady up in my mind before I ever cut it on paper, which I had to be forced to put on paper. Was Crady was supposed to show a darker side of the world.
Yeah.
It's supposed to show that while the main group is going off and saving the world, there's still that real danger.
Yeah.
And the danger is starting to come to a head. The bad part is that Crady is actually technically so the start of the main campaign and the start of Crady are roughly 2 months apart from each other.
Yeah.
So as a player from both campaigns, how hard is it to remember that everything that's happening in the main campaign has already happened by the time Crady has happened? And trying to remember that what's happening in Crady has not happened yet in the main campaign. Like, what are your thoughts? Because as a DM, I'm finding it easy to keep it separate.
So am I. Like, surprisingly so, because there's a couple of layers of separation for me. I'm always, I mean, you've learned this through many panicked DMs at this point. I'm always thinking about what does my character actually know versus what does the player know versus, what am I just crossing? And there's not a ton of crossover between the things that Alani cares about and the things that Alani is focused on and the things that Sienna cares about and the things that Sienna is focused on. So it's not too hard for me to simply put my brain into one space versus another space because they're completely separated. Where we're going to get into trouble is when we figure out who A is. Because it's the worst part for me right now with where you ended Creaty last is knowing this is going to happen and having Sienna be so fucking scattered to the wind with wanting to do so many things and be in so many places, and knowing that there is no world in which Sienna would ever naturally be in a place to assist or even let's say Sienna finds out the day after A is found, assuming that ever happens. It's going to take everything to keep her from going to her sister. Yeah. So for me, it's playing the carefreeness of Sienna, but I just kind of compartmentalize it. Yeah. So that this is, yes, it hasn't happened yet. As a player, I am thinking how am I going to handle that? I kind of need my party to hold me back. Not going to lie.
Well, and not only that, we don't know if the party is still going to be in Plasara.
Yeah, I don't think they will be.
By the time I don't think they will be. Happens.
I think they're going to be on a different continent by then.
Yeah.
Because I mean, look at the list of where the weapons are. They're all over the place. Like Aldno, still a continent, but it's a much smaller continent. And it's further away. And I am dying for a world map to show where these continents are, so I can actually plot this out of my brain a little bit. Truly been dying for that.
I need to see if I can find somebody who would be willing to make one, because doing just these little small maps, I have no problem doing. It's putting it all together that I'm I don't know if I can do. I can describe it. I can describe where they are for somebody, but to actually do it myself,
yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I mean, Volton, completely separate area. Volton,
yeah.
Okay, completely separate area. Wolfalia, completely separate area. Skatori, completely separate area.
Yeah.
Konomia, same thing. Konomia. It all of these places are, if I'm not mistaken, every single one I just listed is not in Plusara. The only one that is we know that the weapons in Aldno, but the more specific place is going to be identified by a person who's very nearby in Xochitl-Con.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
you know what? I'm going to say that Ignacio knows this person all too well. That is all
I
I'm going to
was
say.
concerned about this because
But it
I
is
was
not who you are thinking of. It is not who you are thinking of. I promise you, it is not
Okay.
the ex.
okay. I'm super glad to hear that because we fully intend to pull pranks on her.
Oh,
And
no. Let's put it this way: Ignacio has known this person his entire life,
Mm,
and
okay.
there's like 3 people that fit that bill in Zoshiko-kan.
I was like parents and sibling, maybe.
Parents and Kiko.
Kiko?
Yeah. There is a gnomish woman that was a good influence on Ignacio's life. Her name,
Aw.
she goes by Granny Kiko.
Aw.
Yeah.
I love that. Also, I love Granny Chio, by the way. Completely separate, gnomish woman, but she's wonderful.
I love Chio. The voice for Chio came out of nowhere.
I believe it. I actually believe that there are. I would guess that you've planned maybe about 20% of the voices that you've ended up doing.
The main ones, like the staples.
Yeah.
Shinya, Shinji, Yu, Toshi, the 2 Aizawa husbands, like all of their
Mhm.
voices were all like, this is what they're gonna be.
Mhm.
But like all these side characters, it's just like it just happened. I knew going in that I wanted Chio to have this like nice flittery voice, but a little bit older, you know. And
Mhm.
I knew that, but it was more of like how it was going to convey.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Like
Yeah.
it just happened.
It's adorable. I love it. You said that for you, for Creati, you don't have too much trouble separating them. Um, how hard is it for you to be doing a campaign in the future, knowing that something in the past theoretically could affect it?
Partly because I know that they're 2 separate areas.
Mm-hmm.
Creati itself is very closed off, even though the borders are like partially open.
Mm-hmm.
It is still very much closed off.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 2 towns that you can sail into theoretically, and
Yeah.
even like partially stay in. And even then, it's like you've got a sort of tourist visa situation. You can't stay very long.
Yeah, no, like, well, so Zilla and Shyla both have like other races that actually live there now.
Yeah.
That has happened within the last 100 years, like 50
Mm-hmm.
to 100 years. But even then, if you're like visiting, it's definitely a you can't stay long at all.
Makes sense.
And so yeah, you're right. There is this sort of visitor visa sort of thing.
Yeah. It's probably not super defined or set in stone, which is fine.
Yeah.
But you would definitely start getting side-eyed if you were there for too long and
Yeah.
you weren't like actively setting up to live there forever.
The only thing that could possibly change how Creati is going to go down is if someone from Q, like if Sienna, like say the party is still on Plusara,
Mm-hmm.
and Sienna gets the notice that Akira has gone missing.
Yeah.
That could possibly change a little bit of it. But at the same time, like, I'm also taking into consideration for me as a DM of Sienna never finding out.
Yeah, that's very possible.
Just
I
to
could see
keep
her
that separation.
just to keep the separation, but it also works from a character perspective
Yeah.
because both you and Shinya would, I would imagine, know what happened eventually, or would know that she went missing, but would also know that like telling Sienna is a bad idea because Sienna's on a different mission, and I mean they both met her at this point. They know she's pretty fiery. They don't want to detract from the mission that she's on.
Oh yeah,
And Sienna's going to be pissed about that when she finds out.
oh yeah,
Don't get me wrong. There's going to be a for sure breach of trust there from her perspective. But that's understandable. Like from Shinya, in Shinya's shoes, I wouldn't tell her either, frankly.
Yeah. Well, and it also could be something where even the royal family is just like, if, like, they could also hear, like, Sienna's her half sister
Mm-hmm.
and find out that she's on a completely different mission. Even her uncle, like, through you,
Mm-hmm.
which is Yu's brother, like, don't tell her.
Mm-hmm.
If she's on a completely different mission, first of all, this mission was, it was
Clandestine anyway.
clandestine, but it was classified.
Yeah.
It was a classified mission to begin with. There's no point. There's no reason to tell her
Mm-hmm.
until after the fact.
Yeah. Until she's found either dead or alive, basically.
And
Because until she's found, there's nothing that anybody can do. Even Sienna. Like the point, if you were to tell Sienna, and number one, it would take her time to get there.
yeah,
And by then, hopefully she's found. And number two, even if she did get there, she's a half dwarf, half elf. Like, yes, she's got the Momoyo armband, but that's not going to necessarily solve every problem for her in Creaty.
yeah. Well, and not only that, but it goes back to it being a classified mission.
Mm-hmm.
Even in the real world, if something were to happen, like, the family only knows so much.
Yeah.
And they're sitting there being like, okay, are they just safe? Like, they're getting very little information
Mm-hmm.
just because the person went missing on a classified mission. Like, they can't all of a sudden unclassify the mission just to say what the person was actually doing that caused them to go missing.
Yeah.
Unless
I'm
unless there was a reason to.
Yeah. Who is the one who created the mission for Creaty? Like, who's the, yes, it's classified, but clearly somebody was like, hey, this XYZ needs to happen. Was it Shinji or was it Shinya? Like,
It was actually the royals of Creaty.
the Royals in Momoyo.
Yeah.
Or, excuse me, yeah, the Royals in Creatine. Got it.
Because they knew the prince was coming.
Mm-hmm.
She was basically there to kind of help prep the way for the prince to come.
Interesting.
As a
Okay.
champion of the rock, like she's representing something, because this wedding was supposed to be this big, huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
What better way to calm people's nerves than a champion?
Yeah, it's one way to go about it. I honestly thought that it was fully about hiding the bow somewhere else. Like I genuinely thought it was like, let's get it out of Altrice. Let's move it to somewhere else.
I will tell you this: she did not bring Tethora with her to create.
Gotcha.
Because there was this real risk that something may happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because
And then in that case, probably got left with you.
yeah,
which
exactly.
is where I would leave it.
Yeah. Because you knows Creaty. She knows that there are syndicates in Creaty that are there trying to basically demolish the monarchy.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily have to be followers of the Fallen.
Mm-hmm.
But they definitely are dangerous.
Yeah.
So why risk the champion's weapon falling into one of their hands?
Right. Yeah.
So
no, I wasn't sure if, because in my brain, because I've been thinking about this for a hot minute, like I was thinking she's either going to Creaty to put the bow somewhere else, in which case I could see it being put into a vault in the palace, or she's left it with you and she's going for a different reason.
Yeah. That was that's basically her mission. Of course, Santa doesn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's basically what the mission was. Her mission was basically to kind of stand there and be like, hey, I'm the champion. I approve of this marriage. Like,
Mm-hmm. This marriage is such a bigger hassle than it's worth.
yeah, it really is.
It's such a bigger hassle than it's worth.
This marriage really has no merit whatsoever. It's literally the United Regions of Plasara trying to show their power
Mm-hmm.
by forcing two nations to marry their children off to each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's such garbage, and everybody knows it. Like, that's the thing that sucks, is that the syndicates are right in this scenario.
Yes, they really are. The syndicates are
right.
Like, they're right. They're trying to stop this from happening because they know that it's poppycock.
Mm-hmm. It is.
It really is. It's poppycock. So, but at the same time, like, you also have these two nations whose hands are tied.
Mm-hmm.
They have to do this.
Or what is my question?
Exactly. Or being expelled.
Okay.
So, to kind of put it into perspective, the United Regions of Plasara is kind of like the United Nations, in a sense.
Okay.
Where they're not entirely trying to show power, but at the same time, like, they're trying to show power.
Mm-hmm.
And the expulsion from this thing that is actually protecting them from Vil, because Vil was expelled from the United Regions of Plasara ages ago.
Mm-hmm.
The United Regions is actually helping keep the conquest of Vil at bay.
I mean, they're doing a bang up job, as we've seen elsewhere, that I can't talk about yet because it's not like they're doing a bang up job of that.
Well, but I mean, we also saw that even in that I won't go into too much detail, it was still eradicated quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was it.
Oh,
like,
man.
it came there and stopped.
Yeah. Interesting.
But
interesting that Vil has that much power too. That they're that much of a threat.
But at the same time, you also have to think, if Altrice was expulsed from the United Regions of Plasara, why would there have been a reason for them to stop it?
Why would there have been a reason for who to stop it?
Why would Altrice stop that attack?
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So you see what I was saying? Like, if the United Regions aren't going to protect us, we either let them do it and then join them,
mm-hmm.
or just let them take over.
Let them being Vil, or let them being the United Regions?
Vil. Let Vil take over. Like, at that point, there would have been no point.
Yeah.
And so that's, like, this whole reason is because they want to get Creati into the fold. But there's other things at play that I cannot get into right now.
No, you're good. I mean, my brain is, my brain is going a million miles a minute, and there's only so much that I want to say, but I'm thinking, like, what influences could we think of that might have a global impact that, have had a global impact before?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. Creati is, I didn't expect it to grab me the way that it did, because there were a few things I didn't expect to happen. One, I didn't expect Sparrow to hit on me. Two, that was the first thing that surprised me. Two, I didn't expect the murder of the mayor to hit me as a player as hard as it did. Because I was like, oh, no, fucker's gonna die. Whoever that is. And like, oh, that very quickly became Ilani. Like, oh no. So, like, those two things, I mean, you know how those characters came together. We made them in a matter of
10 minutes. Yeah.
Literally 10 minutes.
I was literally driving home and you and Kat were making your characters because I was out. I was
Mhm.
not home. I was having dinner with my friend for her birthday. Like, and I'm like, I'm driving home and I'm like, okay, what can I do? What can I do? What can I, like, I already had implied, because I was actually, honestly, creating was going to be over the summer. I was going to
Okay.
have a moment where we are going to be like, okay, let's take a break
Mhm.
from the main campaign. You guys are free to join me for this side quest as new characters and whatnot, or if we want to bring in other people for it, totally fine. But we were going to take a break from the main campaign, and I was going to
Mhm.
run Creati for 4 weeks. Like,
Yeah.
Creati was essentially supposed to be way shorter than what it's turning out to be. And I'm
Yeah.
actually quite happy that we are having a chance where we can actually fully, like, dive into Creati.
Yeah. Me too. Because I think it deserves more time.
Oh yeah.
Um, like I do wish, like, there's obviously cities that we're sort of going into and leaving and moving on from. Like, I like that we're getting different perspectives. I do wish we could spend more time in these cities, but
Mm.
we wouldn't. Like, based on what's going on in the campaign, we wouldn't. We would be blasting through.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to see that and just get different vibes from different places around this such a closed area. Obviously not closed to this group, but such a closed area in general.
Yeah. And like, me as a DM, I'm trying to let you, like, make that decision. Do we
Hmm.
spend time here? Ooh, excuse me. Or do you do it just as you say, blow right through it?
Hmm.
And
Yeah. And I mean, if it wasn't like this is a rescue mission, somebody's life is on the line kind of thing, which is at least the way that Alani's for sure thinking about it,
oh, it
I think
definitely
there would be
is.
more, there would be more, I think there would be more time taken.
Yeah.
But I feel like as a player, I'd be doing her a disservice if I wasn't doing the like Judy meme of like the tapping of the wrist and the
Yeah.
like, let's go.
Well, no, I mean, that's exactly it. This is a rescue mission. Now,
Yeah.
it started out as just a rescue mission for the prince,
Hmm.
but now it's slowly becoming like, no, there's also this champion that's missing.
Yeah. And there's no reason for them to think as a party that the two of them could be together,
Yeah.
frankly, because we don't know who's behind it. But we do know that there's an immediacy of this voice being heard and the thought that if this is the missing champion, she's in peril because we're hearing that.
But at the same time, you're also thinking, like, no, our main mission is to find the prince.
Exactly. Exactly.
Which is why, like, with Lark, I was like, there's this, but you do you. Like, all I can
Hmm.
do is just give you this information.
Hmm.
You do what you think is best.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, after all, your main mission, find the prince and rescue him.
Yeah. Get him to creatine.
Yeah.
Which is funny because the person who gave us this mission is now dead. So I'm surprised Elfira hasn't started asking us who's going to pay us for this. Because that's a valid question, honestly.
It really is. Yeah. Yeah, like,
but there's also an element of, because of Alani's backstory, she would do it without knowing who's paying her.
Yeah.
Because she knows what it's like.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very interesting to get there for her. I gotta finish. I desperately want to have my little story write-up done by the time we get back together for Creative for the next time, because in case we run into the person, I really want to be like, okay, so this person happened, and I can have my reaction, and then be like, posting this online, by the way, in case anybody wants to know why she feels the way that she does about this guy.
I
That is the DM giggle.
I honestly, for what I have, because most of Creaty, unlike the main campaign, most of Creaty is planned. Like,
okay,
the story is set in stone. This is what's happening. It's a lot of the smaller details that I'm adding on as we go.
Mm-hmm.
which is why I love like seeing the backstory you have for Alani, because it gives me ideas.
Nice.
But yeah, like the whole main story was they were whoever was in the party, like it's whoever the party makeup was.
Mm-hmm.
They were gonna get the quest of, I need you to deliver the prince to Creatine, and the prince was supposed to go missing overnight. Doolin was supposed to die. The guardian was supposed to die as well, which was Kaysen.
Mm-hmm.
Or Carson, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
And they were supposed to go and track down, and they were definitely going to hear about one of the towns, Care, for the past month have been hearing this woman scream every single night. And or every single day, excuse me, until about nighttime when the screams stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And they were going to find out that information. They would learn about a champion had gone missing and whatnot. There was possible syndicate of the Survirals and the Downtrod that were suspects. Starless Knights, while they're a syndicate, they're not necessarily like the main focus of this. They're informants. Like the Starless Knights are informants. Yeah. That's all they were. They never really had. While they did have a presence, like a fighting presence, it was more of like they were just fighting to protect themselves.
Yeah.
It was never really a case of we're gonna go out and fight. Whereas the Downtrodden and the Survirals, that's what they were there for. They were there to cause. Yeah. They're criminals. Mm-hmm. Those two syndicates are more criminal than the Starless Knights.
Yeah.
And so the whole story is set in stone because the party's supposed to find supposed to rescue her, they find the prince, and they go to Creatine and everything resolves itself.
Mm-hmm.
What I love and enjoy is the minute details that are coming out from the players.
Mm-hmm.
While the story is still in line, it shifts the story a little bit.
Yeah.
And
100%.
I love the influence. While, like I said, Creedy is set in stone, but it's not in a set so in stone that it can't change.
Right.
And mold
like
and
the main story beats.
Yeah.
The main story beats are going to stay the same.
Yeah.
But for the most part, there's also other things that can influence across everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm excited to dig into that. I'm excited also for the thing that you, me, and the other player have also discussed.
Yes. Yes. I'm excited to see how that goes down. Especially since you have two other party members who have no idea that this is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
To see,
which I have yet to decide how. Like, I don't know if that's okay. I've been thinking about that. Like, do I need to warn them?
I think, for me as a DM, when the time comes, or at least before then, we can just say, hey, there is going to be a possibility of a PvP.
Mm-hmm.
Like, something PvP is going to happen.
Yep.
Just be aware.
Yeah. And I think the something that I've had in sort of my back pocket with this is also you guys stay out of this. This is between us kind of thing. Yeah. So that they don't have to pick sides and they don't have to like make that decision on the fly.
Yeah. And I would also like let it still be open that if they want to try to stop this.
Uh-huh.
Or if they do decide to choose sides.
Yeah. Like this could go either way.
Yeah. Like I don't want to fully stop that from being a thing, But at the
Mhm.
same time, like, I want to make sure that the players know that somewhere down the line, we don't know when, there is going to be a possibility of a PvP
Yeah. And if
situation.
anybody's uncomfortable with that, we need to know, kind of thing.
Well,
And I
if
don't think they
anybody's,
would be.
I don't think anybody would be, but it still allows them to say, I'm not comfortable with that. Then we can maybe find a way of either having that character not be there. That way, when
Yeah.
it starts happening, the player could just walk away if they don't
Yeah,
want
they
to
don't have to be
see
in
it. Well, the player themselves could just walk away from their computer. So they
Yeah.
don't have to sit there and witness it, but also at the same time, like, keep a close eye on the chat, like on their phone or something, when it's okay to come back.
Yeah.
Or if they're
Absolutely.
fine, but their character would not be comfortable, the character can go, like, be occupied with something, but they can still sit there.
Yeah. No, 100%. And
Yeah.
that's a big thing. Like, just for the audience sake, like making sure that your fellow players are comfortable with things like that may or may not have been discussed early on, but like just making sure, like, if there's going to be PvP, if there's going to be romance, like if there's going to be, like, you don't want to just spring that on somebody.
Yeah.
And I've seen that happen before, and it's never pretty. So like just making sure you're talking to your other players about like where your head is at and where you think your character might be going. If you think it's going in a direction that could impact them, it's so important to share that.
Like, especially with the romance.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with romance. Like, I'm gonna say this. Back when Melora was joining that campaign, Rolando came up to me and was like, because of course I filled out a form and everything. He just wanted to check in and make sure what I was comfortable with, and I said, honestly, I'm okay with anything when it came to romance. And I was just like, but at the same time, like, I'm okay if, like, PDA happens.
Yeah.
Like, I'm okay with that. Just so long as nothing bedroom happens.
Yeah.
Like, on screen.
Role playing, yeah, I was like, role playing that is a very different thing
I
than role
don't
playing
mind
PDA.
going into a thread and doing it. Like, I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
But doing it on screen, nah. Like,
No.
I don't want to get in. And it's not that I'm uncomfortable with it. It's more of, for the sake of everybody else,
Yeah.
let's not do it.
100%. Yeah. It's very much best to keep all that in mind.
Yeah. And I'll even say, like, when it came to Kavoria and Ignacio's first time, where poor Cat.
And Sienna.
Yeah,
Like, Sienna rolled high too.
Yeah, but you still were under the DC.
Yeah. Was I?
Yeah, you were. Because the DC was 16, and I think you rolled a 15.
Something like that, yeah.
You were under DC, so
I heard something, but I didn't hear everything.
You had no idea who it was.
Yeah.
You had no idea that it was Ignacio
Serafina.
But Serafina, poor Serafina,
heard everything.
Well, heard it and instantly made the connection.
Uh-huh. Yeah, this was definitely an ignorance is bliss. You wanted to roll lower situation.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, Rolando came to me and was like, I, as a player, am comfortable doing this.
Yeah.
Because he knew me as a player, I was comfortable doing it. He didn't know how comfortable I was as a DM playing an NPC was comfortable. Yeah. And, like, I love that the group that we have is okay of reaching out and checking in.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, that's just key to any group. Reach out to each other. Check in.
100%. Absolutely, 100%. I mean, like, even the one that I've looped you in on, that where I checked in romantically, it was like, it's so early.
Yeah.
It's so
But at
early.
the
But at the same time, we had a really good conversation about what that could look like and
Yeah.
why it's happening. So that when we're in RP, a lot of those sort of subtle things that might on the surface just be one thing also can be read by both players as something else.
Yeah.
It just enriches the RP, really.
Yeah. And I loved that you checked in about with Raiko.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I wasn't even planning it, but I'm here for it. Like, I'm down for it. Absolutely.
I'm glad because I was like, I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but
no,
also
like
he
I,
cute.
yeah, he is cute. He's
He cute. We love our little shy bean.
yeah, but but
Also,
at the
he's so much taller than her. Like a lot of people
yeah.
are, but like
Oh
I
yeah,
also imagine he's often not been the tallest guy in the room. So
yeah. I think I said he was like 5'10". I think
he's 5'10". Yep.
yeah. So he's the same height as Ignacio.
Mm-hmm.
Ignacio and Ellery both, because they're both
Mhm.
5'10". But yeah,
Literally put them side by side.
well, I laughed that Ignacio and Ellery are like the same height because I'm thinking not just because of the relation, like a romantic relationship with them, but the fact that
Mhm.
there is a woman that is tall,
Mhm.
taller than the elven lineage that is a full elf.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because then
That's
you
so
have
funny.
Kavoria, who is 6 foot,
Mhm.
who's full elf, and is
Currently the tallest one in the party.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, she is. She is the tallest one. But I laugh because Melora is also 6 foot, and Ryson is 6 foot. So they have like the same height, but Melora is a human female who is taller than the two elven lineage females within their group.
It's perfect.
And it's like, how is the human taller than the elves? Come on. Like, how?
She's a hunter. She always ate well.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, she really did eat well because her parents were hunters too.
See, there you go.
But yeah, like,
Oh man.
I especially with romance, I really appreciate when players want to reach out to other players, especially if there's going to be a PC
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah. And I too, so so for the audience, there is a consent in gaming form that I'm very fortunate that every D&D campaign I've been in has actually used. And it lists a bunch of different things and gives you sort of a green, yellow, red, and then spaces to elaborate on how you feel about that. And I go and I read every single one for all of my other players to make sure I have some concept of that. And there was even one where, like, uh, with another player in the Creedy campaign, there was one where they had listed it as like PC romance as a hard like line for them, like a no. So I checked in with that person, just be like, hey, is the thing between is the thing between Sparrow and I going to make you uncomfortable in any way? And they were like, oh no, it's fine. I just don't want it for myself, but I
Yeah.
don't mind if
Oh,
the
I
other
think I know
PCs
exactly
do it.
who you're talking about.
Yeah, so like I think it's important to like pay attention. To me, that's a player responsibility.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of players out there who aren't as proactive as I am, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn in that. I'm just saying like those things. It's really important to be proactive.
Yeah.
So if you do get into those spaces, just be super
Yeah.
mindful of yourself and your interactions with the other
Yeah.
people in the space.
And I, as a DM, I of course read all of my players' consent forms, and I like on certain topics, I go to them and be like, hey, I want to tell you this, that especially if there's a topic that's yellow,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say you don't really have to worry about it being active on screen,
Mm-hmm.
but I cannot guarantee that it won't be mentioned.
Yeah.
And most of the players that I have ran into that have, like, I'm going to use harming animals as an example.
Yeah.
they were okay if it was mentioned or touched upon, just so long as it wasn't actively done on screen.
Yeah.
I even think back to, because I also have this for my Sunday campaign, that I have yellow for harming animals. My character Melora has a wolf companion, and I've actually told explicitly to Rolando, like, I am okay if Lix gets injured. Because he's in the battle, he's fighting, I know the risks. Melora knows the risks.
Yeah.
I am okay if he gets hurt in battle.
Yeah.
What I am not okay with is if somebody were to come up to him and just kick him for no reason.
Yeah. And there's a big
That's
difference.
where I draw the line. And actually, when there was a point where I kind of told you this, where everybody was supposed to be in the cathedral after a battle, and Rolando told me afterwards that he actually did consider Lix, but he himself couldn't do it. And so he found a way to, like, have him be fine with a limp, but he's fine.
Yeah.
And I was like,
hopefully.
I told him, I was like, me as a player would have been fine if that had happened. Alora, yeah, she's gonna bawl her eyes out because she raised Lix. But me as a player, I would have been fine with it because, once again, it comes back to he was in a battle. He knew the risks because he's not a dumb animal.
Yeah, no.
And if he, Melora herself would have known that too. That he went guarding and protecting. But yeah, it's like always just checking in, especially with something like that. Be like, hey, are you okay with this? And if you're a DM out there or a player out there who doesn't do that, you should. Go do it right now. Leave this video, go do it now.
Yeah, it's incredibly important.
Yeah.
Like it will, it's, in my opinion, it's something that will enrich the experience for both you and the other people you're playing with, because it makes the space a little bit safer.
Yeah.
It's also going to bring you a little bit closer as friends. And it just kind of is one of those, like, I mean, I've always been a big believer in when people show you who they are, believe them. Like, if somebody's being careless and selfish in the way that they play the game, I'm not interested in that. I've got better ways and better people to spend my time with.
Yeah.
Like, that's okay. And so you do end up, which is super nice, in spaces where if that's not happening and people are being disrespectful of your boundaries, get out of that space. There are other spaces.
Yeah.
You don't need to stick around in a place that's making you feel uncomfortable, because at the end of the day, this is a game. You're supposed to be having fun.
Yeah. And
So have fun.
I do want to bring up, like, after we stopped recording the 3-on-1, where because Serafina did mention kind of what happened when back in Captoria, when children used magic that wasn't approved. We checked in because we know one of our players had it listed as yellow.
Yeah.
And we just checked in, was like, hey, I know we touched upon this. Are you okay with it?
Yeah.
And she was fine. She basically said what I said. Like, most of them are A-okay if it's mentioned, as so long as it's not depicted.
Right. Well, and we were also, like, I feel like we were good about checking in during, too.
Yeah.
Just being like, hey, is this okay? Everybody good?
Yeah.
And you know, we all sort of gave each other the thumbs up, and that's okay. But yeah, it's something you can do that doesn't have to break immersion or break the moment. You
Yeah.
can do it subtly, especially in a remote setting where you have like side chats and things or text chats that you
Yeah,
can
like,
use.
or even if you have like the phone number of the person, like send them
Yeah.
a text. Because I know for me, sometimes when I'm actively DMing, it's hard for me to check Discord.
Yeah.
And I am trying to make it a point that if there is a lot of role play going on that I'm not involved in, take a moment, check your Discord, see if there's something that a player has brought up or wants to do something. Like at the end of episode 8, Rolando had messaged me like, "Hey, end it with the girls. I want the conversation and whatever happens with Kavoria and Ignacio to be in text chat, like a text RP."
Oh, okay.
And I was like, all right, that's why I messaged you, like, we've got to draw this out. Because I still wanted to get the time in. I didn't want it to get to a point where we end with the girls and we still have like 30 minutes.
Yeah, no, I really appreciated that. And it also it gives us space to go ahead and RP. Because what's nice is like everybody in our both groups, in both Creaty and the main campaign, like everybody, we're kind of blessed. Everybody's pretty good at role play. Like, so it will come to a natural end. It will sort of round an arc out. And it's nice.
And,
It's good.
and I'm glad, like, I don't even know if you messaged the other two or anything, but I know because you were actively there, I was like, draw it out.
Yep.
Draw it out because Rolando has specifically requested that his time in this episode is done. Draw it out.
Yeah.
And it naturally happened. Like I said, I don't even know if you contacted the other two. The other two just did it.
Nope. Yeah, I just let it. I had a feeling. So I'd been picking up on the fact that Ellery made it very clear she wanted to talk to Serafina, and I truly thought that that conversation was going to happen back at the inn. But Ellery chose to have it there in the tree with Serafina, and that was great for Sienna because number one, it was a very nice gesture of trust, and number two, it was it was good for them to have a little bit of space.
Yeah.
So I knew we would have the material as long as, like, as soon as Ellery started down that road, I was like, oh yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
I didn't even have to really do anything.
Yeah, and the fact that, like, it could have ended with Ellery and Serafina coming back to the inn, I was like, no, I do want to check in on Sienna, like, see what's going on with her, what she's doing, because we still, at that point, had, like, 15 minutes left.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't, like, I'm okay with ending maybe 5 minutes early, but I don't want to end it this early. Like, the only exception to that was when Bix left.
Well, and also I didn't, for me, like, with her being in the inn, I knew that she was wanting to, like, talk to Ami and make that change. What I did not expect was for Sonara to jump in. That caught me off guard in a good way.
Yeah.
But that made it really special when we were able to, like, have that conversation. Like, I like, Mel got choked up in that moment talking about, I don't know what this means exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. It was a really nice opportunity. But I also get, like, this about me, I get nervous about being the loudest person in the room sometimes. So it was nice to have that space because I knew we were sort of wrapping up, and I knew what you had messaged me about it being like, let's wrap this here. And Ellery had put it in such a nice, like, space with her writing. Yeah, so it was a nice way. And then the vision was also just like icing on the cake for me. It was great.
Yeah. I have to give full disclosure. I was not planning on doing that.
Really?
But once again, I was trying to fill time. And I was like, I need at least 5 more minutes worth of stuff, because then I would be comfortable going to the ending soon, like the little in talk, and then going out.
Yeah.
What I didn't expect was it to take as long. Because literally we pretty much wrapped it up. We did go a little bit over 11 o'clock, but I think because I tried to end it at 11 for Rolando, for his sake.
Yeah.
But I think Rolando even picked up like that talk needed to happen at the
Yeah.
end, which is why we went like a couple of minutes over 11. But yeah, I was not planning on doing that vision/dream, but it felt so right in the moment, especially since Sunara had pointed out this journal entry for Santa to read.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to read it. I wanted to at least read one of the journal entries on stream. And at the time, I was looking between the three. And for you, I was fully going to read the last one.
Yeah.
I was going to read the last one.
Yeah. The last one's really good.
But like one of those things just kept pulling me back to the first one of the three that Sienna would have read that night.
Yeah. Well, and specifically like the grant me insight to what is pertinent to us today. What do I need to be focusing on? And that entry was the perfect one.
Yeah. Like, I mean, all three of them would have fit that bill.
Yeah.
But specifically that first one, it was just like, nah, it has to be the first one.
Yep.
And then when I got to the end of that, I was like, nah. When you said that after Ami went back and she would have crawled back into bed, I was like, nah. She's got to have a dream.
Yeah.
There's got to be something that connects what her thoughts are.
She'll look over at the tome. I am reading about what I think might be some of the worst times in your life. Well, I think I've heard people say things like this in prayers, but I do genuinely ask. Will you please grant me insights to what I am reading, especially for where it might help us today?
You feel this warmth over your shoulder. You watch as something like skims across the pages. Like it's formless, but yet you could kind of barely see it.
Mm.
And
She'll go over to the tome and look closer at it.
you see a passage become very clear. And almost like you can hear it in your father's voice. This war is becoming pointless. Zephyr cannot seem to understand that his father and the other gods don't need to show us mortal beings the power for us to know that they are way more powerful than us. Dimitri landed a good blow on Sonora, and Zephyr went into a rage. He lashed out and landed a blow on him, but Dimitri was spared by Bridgerton. I thought that Bridgerton was nothing more than just a mindless mechanical friend. But there's something different about that automaton.
That's what I said.
But that is besides the point. Zephyr started going on a tirade and killed more people. Sonora was the only one who was able to subdue him at the moment. What has gotten into him? Zephyr was a good kid. He was always so willing to help others, and now he has so much hatred for not only the other gods, but also for his father. Senosha still sleeps in my house, but he speaks to me telepathically on some days. Tomorrow, I'm going to slowly bring him out of the frozen state to see if we can heal him. Though, looking at the wounds, maybe only Gerania would be able to heal him. If things keep going the way they are, we are going to need Senosha to finish this battle. Darak is going to be close by in case we need to put Senosha back into a stasis. But I fear his wounds are too great. Zephyr did a number on him. Thank Revenge that Zephyr's mother walked over to the other side before he fell. She would have been so heartbroken that he had fallen so far from that happy boy we all remember. Lune 17. Year -4.
Something changed, Zephyr.
Yes. Something changed my son.
Yeah, because I was saying them as we were going through some of the journal pieces, if I recall correctly. It was like that's something changed, something was different,
Yeah.
but there was no verification of that until we got into the dream.
Yeah. You oddly have a dream that night. You find yourself back in your father's home, yet it doesn't look as new as you saw it just about 5 nights ago. You see in that little sitting room that you saw Aspen and Rosanna in, a figure lying on the floor. Long blue hair, male form, elven. A large gaping wound in his chest.
Senosha.
You can see yourself spin as another elven male, long black hair, black eyes, walks into the room. And bends down and places a hand on the other male's chest. And then you see your father walk in. He still sleeps. Revenge. But I fear his body may not last much longer. I know. This war has got to end. I am not gonna allow a brother of mine go to the other side. We'll find a way to save him. You see the raven-haired elven male stand up. Ravens, what's the plan? How are we going to stop this war? I don't know. I fear we may have to take out Zephyr. It may be the only way. I'll go speak to Durak. I know he's still reeling over the loss of his son. But there's got to be something we can do. Of course.
Does Sienna have any agency in the dream?
No.
Okay.
It's almost a vision.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see Shinga's gaze look straight at you.
She'd be a little startled, but like a...
Find what turned Zephyr. And that's where you'll wake up.
I'm excited to see what comes up next.
Because you are right. Something did change Zephyr.
Mm-hmm.
You just gotta find
Yeah,
what.
and before the journal, I was definitely not necessarily thinking that. I was thinking the classic sort of, good evil dichotomy. But I like that there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
This has been fun.
This has been fun.
We need to do more of these.
Yes, we do.
We really need to.
We need more of these. We need to do, like I said, I'd love to hear you having one-on-ones with everybody. Like, I'd love to listen to that. And then post-episode debriefs would be fun, too. Whether it's however we decide to logistically work that out, I think that would be fun.
I think our best bet is probably trying to at least do it once a month.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Talk about, like, the month's episodes. Like, I would probably wait until it's, like, after the last one of the month. That way we can talk about all the month's sessions.
So you do, like, a top of the month sort of recap.
Yeah.
I like that.
That would be fun to do.
Yeah. But this has been good.
This has been good.
And audience, if you don't know what we're talking about, you should probably fix that.
Yeah. You should probably stop watching this. If you've watched it all the way through and got here,
Godspeed, my friend.
Godspeed. Go watch everything. Go watch from episode 1 until now because it's such a good story.
It really has turned into such a fun thing to be part of, and such a great story, like you said.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so Creedy is happening once a month. The next Creedy episode being in May.
Unfortunately.
Then it's okay. We did two. We did two in March. It's fine.
Yeah, we did too. We
Uh,
covered April's in March. Yeah.
yeah. And then for the main campaign, every Tuesday at 8:15 p.m. Eastern on Shaline Tsuruga's Twitch TV and on Ardent Melody's Twitch TV.
Yay.
Check it out.
And I think maybe Katerina Marie may be joining us every once in a while.
I think so.
Yeah.
I also think Harper's thinking about doing it. Like, we may just end up where every player's also streaming.
Except for Rolando.
Except for Rolando. Poor guy.
I mean, he has a Twitch. He just doesn't really stream as much. So
That's okay. That is okay. But yeah, I follow our socials. Follow A Mercenary's Adventure or A Merc's Adventure. I think it's just MERC Adventure, Merc Adventure, on Twitter and Blue Sky. We always announce whenever we're going live there. So yeah. Well,
and I do want to, if you're watching this, like probably before the 7th and the 14th of April comes out,
Yes.
Mercs is moving to that time. So
just
for
those
those 2 weeks.
Yep.
Just for those 2 weeks. Otherwise, yes, it is always on Tuesday.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. All right, my friend. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. Have a good
Thank
rest.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.